Hey, YouTube, we are back. Grant us glorious tone is in the house. I apologize for having to cut it short and taking so long to get going again, but we are here. So just to clarify a couple things there, John, I was more or less addressing some of the other gentlemen that kind of were a little less than courteous, if you will, in their responses to things. So spent electrons, you weren't really missing anything. You weren't really what that thing was addressed to. Pretty much if you're already in the giveaway, you don't got anything that like that last video is moot for you. It was more to kind of provide a warning and an expectation and set boundaries. I'm going to say set boundaries. That's a good way of putting it, actually. For those of, those who are new to this whole series, what's going on, and are looking to get into this giveaway. John had gotten, and there was a couple posts that were a little less than respectful. I don't think they meant like bad by it or whatnot, but it was just like a very entitled and a very pointed like thing, like, how dare you, make me jump through a hoop to do this, and nobody said anything about this. Like my entry is valid because it's just because I did what you asked me to do. You didn't tell me all this other stuff. And it was like, okay, no, let's clarify some things here then. So that's what we did in that last video. It was just more to like set those kind of boundaries and let you know, like, obviously this isn't just a free-for-all. Yes, it's open to the general public, but it's not for the general public in that regard, because it is like one of those, there's something strange about these things. I can't explain it. Like I keep telling everybody, like, you cannot give these things away. There's just this interesting dichotomy to it. And it's just impossible to make everybody happy. And either nobody's interested in it at all until there's something more about it that, to be interested about, or I don't know, I might just be talking out my butt. But at the same time, I think some people kind of look at these giveaways as like a gift, like that they're what's like a God-given gift or something like that, like breathing air or something. Enter. So you can win this amp, David. I don't know if you've heard Andy and I talking about it a bit, but yeah, you can still win this amp. But to enter, the instructions are in a lot of these descriptions. If you've been watching any of my lives recently, I did go through and update everything so that, they all have the same entry notes. I put this picture up on everything so everybody, there are a lot of greedy people out there too. That is true, Offset. But I try to make it fair. We didn't want to put so much verbiage in the rules that it just started turning into paragraphs of, all these different things that you had to have. More or less, that is what John is doing, is he's policing and vetting those entries. Whose giveaway is it? Well, it's technically my giveaway. This is the amp that I built. So I know you know me more from Andy's channel. I'm one of the moderators over there, and a good friend of Andy as well. But this is the amp that I built, and this is a giveaway amp. So we are doing this as a giveaway. However, it is being hosted by Grant Us Glorious Tone, and I'm sure you've heard Andy talk about John a bit as well. So obviously there's a little bit of a backstory as to why it's going that way and all that stuff. I won't go into all those details. It doesn't matter really at this point. But it's just interesting. I don't know. So John's job is to police those entries, though. That's it, really. That's all there's not like a pick apart of like, your rig is only worth this many points. It's not a point system. Like, your entry is an entry, right? If you have a valid entry, you're in the running, if you will, or the lottery, or whatever you want to call it, the sweepstakes, the giveaway, yada yada yada. But the requirement is pretty simple. You have to place a video that introduces yourself. We want to be able to see you. It'd be nice to see you. And you introduce yourself and show us your rig. Now, why else on this planet would we want to see your rig? Why else? Because if you are busting out with a freaking Fender G deck from the 1990s or early 2000s or whatever, you know, the combo amp with the sealed back on it, no external outputs and stuff like that, you can't play this thing. You have to have a speaker cab to play this thing. To even turn it on, this thing has to be connected to a speaker cab, or you can burn your house down possibly. Probably not, but it's definitely not going to help the amp if you turn it on without a speaker load on it, right? So, oh, okay, David. So you can't do that. Yeah. Well, so we had a couple people that tried to enter that probably also couldn't do that. And then they kind of, I don't know what their intention was. All I can do is read what they said, but what they said didn't sound very respectful in terms of where they are on the power chain, if you will, for how this thing gets doled out, right? You don't talk down to your savior, if you will. I mean, for lack of a better way of putting it, but you know what I mean? Like, so it was just kind of like one of those things, like this gentleman more or less told me how I was going to run my thing. I was like, no, it's still mine. I can touch it. It's in my possession. So it was kind of irked me a little bit. And I tried to be, what's the political about it, I guess you could say. I tried to be fair and nice and give him like kind of an idea of what it was. Kind of get the feeling it was maybe a little younger. But more or less, this is kind of like, you can kind of treat it like a transaction. And that's one of the things I put in Grant's post that he put, that I basically said this. Treat it like a transaction. All right. This is a transaction between you and I and Grant and you, right? So whether you pay me or not, this amp is going to end up in your possession, right? But if you treat it like a transaction, your expectation is that you give me a lot of money and you get this, right? You pay me a lot of money and you get this. What you can do with it after that point in time is completely irrelevant to everything else. If you don't have a speaker cab, that sounded very Canadian. If you don't have a... Nar. I'm kidding. But, you know, if you don't have... I did it again. A speaker cab, you can't play this thing. Whether you give me money or give me an entry into the contest or whatever you want to call it. You can't play it without a speaker cab. Period. So you might as well just treat it like a transaction where, you know, if you don't have a way to utilize this thing, then don't buy it. And in that case, it was basically simply, you know, don't, I'm going to get this frickin' fly. I'm telling you right now, this thing's going to die. But, I don't know. That's, to me, that's the only way that kind of keeps it fair, is if you think of it like that. Now, oh, you little shit. I'm going to knock him out. But thank you for your interest. If you are interested in this kind of stuff at all, welcome in. Check out the series. You can learn how I built this thing and how it got to this point where it's at. Because this thing did not show up yesterday. For those of you who are new, there's nobody new in here. But yeah, we spent just about 6 months and over 200 hours building it. So David, since you're kind of new, this is more for you, but a little over 200 hours to build this thing, and a significant investment, damn near $2,000 to get this thing put to the state that you see it. What did it start life as? Literally a box. Like, it was a plastic covered aluminum box and a bunch of random parts. And we took all of those things, we drilled holes in the box, we put all those parts in the box, and then I built another box to put around the box. And I gave it leather corners and a leather handle and stainless steel dog legs, or, you know, dog bones or whatever you want to call them, all that fun stuff. So that's what the last episode was just try to clarify some of those things I had bothering me, if you will. But let's just talk in general. I know some of you guys probably have some questions. Right? A pile of parts and an idea. Yes, Tone Priest in the house, man. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate that. I saw the video today from Skrillex. Is that how you pronounce his channel name? I'm pretty sure it's Skrillex. If you haven't seen any of his stuff, I think you should go over there for sure. I am trying to get there so I can correct myself and make sure I got his name right. I know it came up on my list earlier, but since I watched, there it is. So it is Skrillex. I'm going to his channel now. Hold on while I mute that. And his channel is at Vessel1. All right, so it's at symbol VESSAL1. In fact, here, let me one up that a little bit here. Let me get to this. Click. There it is. Go to this channel here. Subscribe. He's only got 72 subscribers. He's doing something similar to what I'm doing here, where he goes through and shows you all of his different builds. All right, you can see all this stuff there. This is his last video that he did. No. He had one that he did literally just the other day. Oh, no, this one is 2 months old. I thought it was a newer video, but this is a lot of what he's doing. I saw this one today finally. But I think I watched it earlier, actually, because I thought I recognized it. But as you can see, he's got some of that action going on as well. It's a small little world. But he's a hell of a player, a better player than I am, that's for sure. But his forte is mostly taking old amplifiers like Bogans and other antique amplifiers and converting them into modern day hot rockers. He seems to favor the Dirty Shirley topology. So I think this one's called number 5. I imagine it's number 5 for a reason. I don't know the entire history of it, but go check him out. Give him a sub. He's kind of working down the same path I am, where he kind of shows you how to do XYZ, shows the build process and all that fun stuff. So, that Jack build, I want the amp that Luke built. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. But a lot of what this channel is meant to do is to try to, show you like the tricks of the trade, if you will, inspire you to do this yourself. Because I know that amps these days are kind of pricey, and they're mostly made from PCBs. Which is to say that if you're buying a Friedman off the showroom floor today, it's going to be PCB or eyelet board. It's kind of like a hybrid is more or less what it is. I will get to that in just a minute there, Low Budge. Yes. So is the tone, like all the BAD stuff, those are the big bad mamma jammas right now, right? So you got Bogner in there, you've got Ignator in there, you've got Tone King in there, Soldano's in there, of course Friedman. There's a couple other, Synergy, etc. Synergy, I think, is more or less the parent company. Synergy is also the house brand that they use for all their caps and most of those. Morgan Amplification's in there. Wampler Pedals is in there. So there's a bunch of stuff going on. I think, okay, I should rephrase it. Bogner, his amps are still made by him, but all of his amps now are PCB. They are nothing like what they used to be. They are all PCB. And he's using tube-mounted sockets. Oh my God, that made me so sick to say right now. Bogner is using tube-mounted sockets on his stuff these days. Sickening. Sickening. That's what a premium brand gets you these days. So that's what a lot of them are doing, though. So even some of the Friedman stuff has gone to tube-mounted or PCB-mounted sockets, right? Did I say tube-mounted sockets? I said PCB-mounted sockets. Blech, PCB-mounted sockets. You know what I mean. So there's that kind of activity going on there. And then, of course, all the remainders are doing the same thing. If you buy a Victory amp, if you buy a Fender, if you buy a Black Star, you name it, any name brand that you can find on the Sweetwater freaking page right now today is going to be PCB. Now, there are a couple standouts in that list that are actually handmade. There's not too many. Dr. Z is one of the last of the true big box, big name, huge brand companies, if you will, that is still doing it more or less like I do here, where it's a real G10 board that is drilled specifically for that particular amp. The turrets are pressed. Fucking shit. I almost got them. And put together with human hands, with care and all the love and all the fun stuff, and still sold at a reasonable rate. So that's craziness, right? Marshall and their conductive glue. Yeah, right? I be listening. I needed a short break myself. Nice, man. Robert Cray uses an amp. Friend that is a hand-wired point-to-point. Yeah, hell yeah, I'll bet he does. Let's see here. Any plans for pedals? So, that's what's kind of going on in the big world right now. So that's how a lot of these companies, even if they say they're boutique, the boutique's the word of the day. Like for all these companies, it's weird. Victory Amps, I would never consider to be a boutique company. Like I would have never ever considered them to be boutique. They are calling themselves boutique. I don't know how the hell you can have a store. It's an in-house brand, if you will. So if you know Anderton's Music, the Captain and Rob Chapman, right? So the Captain, I believe it's his father that owned Anderton's Music or something like that. I don't know the whole story. Don't get me, don't tie me to anything yet. But I do know that the Captain in that whole scenario is a big part of the decision making and all that jazz that goes on with Anderton's. Anderton's created a house amplifier company called Victory Amps. Victory Amps are amps that are designed more or less by Martin Kidd. Now, if that name rings a bell to you, it should, because Martin Kidd is the progenitor, if you will, of corn-forward amps, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm pretty certain I am. Let me make sure I'm not putting foot in mouth. So, Martin Kidd, amp designer. Yep, there we go. At least it knew I was looking for. And the rise of yada, yada, yada. What is, yeah, they all talk about his recent stuff. Corn-forward, yep. It is corn-forward. Okay, I was not crazy. So that's about the only thing that is boutique about that entire entity is the fact that Martin Kidd is, I don't think he's holistically engineering or designing those amps. I think he's really just kind of doing more of the, like the circuit topology. Like, yeah, this is my Mark II that I built. Let's put it into this thing, and then they have other engineers that go in and figure out the PCB design. I can almost guarantee you he's not doing the pedal design. They probably have some other generic design that they come up with. And most of these engineers aren't really like engineers like you think they are. They're not like somebody like me that's sitting in here tinkering away to come up with this design. A lot of them is pick and pull. All right. So the power supply, it's the same power supply that they've used in 100 other products before. And they just adapt it to it, right? If there's a lot of these websites that you can go on and there's circuit designers built in specifically for these power supplies, and there are a lot of these types of products. All right, so they know how to use that software. They have access to this software. They punch in a bunch of parameters. It spits out all the little things they need, and the PCB trace is already designed with it. It comes with all the data and all the stuff that they need. And then they just kind of build off of it from there. So even if it is Martin Kidd that's coming up with the topology for the preamp side of things, most all the other stuff is pick and pull. There's a lot of OEMs out there that have all these things kind of pre-made, and it's just like pick and pull. We have this little XYZ chip that does X number of watts and it's class D, yada, yada, yada. It requires this amount of power. So you just pick and pull all this stuff. And then the software that they have probably nowadays is AI driven. So it'll kind of come up with some clever way to package all this thing into what you need. I'm sure they got another engineer there sitting in there with Fusion 360 or whatever, coming up with, how all this is going to fit together, where all the holes are going to go. Dave Friedman has talked about it, and even the gentleman that owns Black Cat Amps has talked about it. They have an engineer, an in-house engineer, and their job is to figure out how to pull all those resources together and put it together. Then they have a QC side of things, right? So Friedman has talked about it where he says he tells his engineers, I want to do X, Y, and Z. He maybe comes in and does a couple tweaks or whatever. They send it out to get the PCBs drawn up. They get it back, put it together, listen to it, see how it works. I like it, cool. Let's approve this. Then the engineers come in, package it all up, get it ready to go, send it off to the stampers who literally just stamp out a PCB and it comes back, it gets put together, goes through another round of testing and through the production line, right? That's how they pull that crap off. Whereas somebody like me, someone like Dr. Z is a little bit different. So obviously he doesn't come out with new designs too often. So he's got a, what would you call it? I don't know. He's got a list of amps, right, that he had, or current production, right? And then he's now got the Legacy series. So the Legacy series are basically amps that he has chronologed so well that he knows for a fact that he can continue to build it, not even have to think about it. The amp is so settled that they could build it with their eyes closed, send it out the door, and it's going to be problem-free. Doesn't have any design tweaks they need to worry about. You know, there's not a version 3 that they need to do. There's not some quirk in it that needs to be, you know, debugged or something like that. All those kind of things, right? That's what the Legacy series is for Dr. Z, are amps that at one point were no longer made, but yet were so good and so settled that you might as well bring them back into the repertoire, I guess, if you will. So, then you know, like Red 7, Mates of Barba, like a lot of those guys, they're PCB. Sorry, I hate to tell you, 2-Rock is not what 2-Rock used to be. 2-Rock amp today is going to be a PCB amp. Early 2000s, you could still get one made with a door skin eyelet board. It was an eyelet board that was made on a door skin. That was his thing, and he did what he did. He used a lot of those orange drop caps and stuff like that. Used 5 different resistors because that made all the difference in the world. Stuff like that, right? At least you didn't goop them. So I would say that 2-Rock was kind of one of the first few people to jump on the Dumble train. Now he's going to say, they say that their amps are not based off of Dumbles. They have resemblances thereof, but more or less I think the apple didn't fall far from the tree kind of thing. They were the earliest ones to kind of be able to capitalize off of the whole Alexander Dumble fame and ungooping of the amp, you will, and getting it into product that can be sold to the general public, along with Andy Fuchs and a couple other companies out there. Now you've got Amplified Nation that's kind of leading up the whole Dumble thing right now. Those are actually handmade. If I'm not, no, I don't think they are. I still think they're PCB, but they're still at least hand stuffed. I don't quote me on that. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure Amplified Nation has kind of, they found a way to make it marketable at least. So cookie cutters, more or less, yeah. Now I will give credit where credit is due. Like Andy Fuchs and, you know, 2-Rock are at least coming up with semi-original designs, but obviously they're always trying to land very close to that whole Dumble thing. They're going to tell you it's unique and, you know, carries very little resemblance to it thereof. But I would dare to bet, based on how they lay things out and how they kind of market the things, that obviously, you know, it's just some rendition of a Dumble that's just got some tweaks, modified Dumbles, if you will. And what are Dumbles? More or less modified Fenders, if you will. This one here, well, Third Power. So let's talk about Third Power. I know that they are using PCBs in many of their amps. I think they have a few things in their lineup that are still handmade, but I think there are some parts in their lineup too that are also just PCB made, or PCB based anyway. Again, don't quote me. I could be wrong. They might be doing hand-built everything, but I don't think so. Based on some of the pictures I saw, it looks like there's some level of PCB action going on in there. But from what I can glean from the Third Power side of things, is their thing is kind of the Ken Fisher train wreck thing. So modified train wrecks, if you will, which is more or less what this one kind of is. It's just a modified train wreck. When you get down to the closest topology that you could base the circuit off of, it's kind of what it is. Where it delves completely and goes off the rails altogether is that this one is using 2 parallel triodes that circumvent that circuitry. So it's got an added gain stage that happens to end up being a parallel triode. And then, of course, this one's using a 50-watt high-watt output section. As I recall, one of you guys were asking yesterday what power tubes are in this thing. It's 2 EL34s in here. So that is what it's designed to run around. It will fit anything else in there, realistically speaking, but there's not enough space, I don't think, to put like KT66s or KT88s in there. I do honestly believe it will run KT88s without problem. The problem is that there's not enough space between the preamp tubes there and the output tubes to be able to fit them next to each other. So, okay, yeah. The Dillons. What is that? Cookie, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So, there's a lot of different companies doing a lot of different things, and most companies tend to land on one topology kind of framework, if you will. So Matchless was more known for their Vox kind of styled amps, even though they had many other options out there. They did a lot of cathode biased EL34 amps. They did a bunch of different designs, but the ones that they are famous for and the ones that they are more noted for are the ones that are more Vox-ish. So there you have it. Matchless is kind of on that thing. High Watt is its own little thing. The High Watt of today is a shell. It's a sham, really. Realistically, if you buy a High Watt today, it is nothing, not even close to what it was in the 1970s or even the 1960s, especially the 1960s and early 1970s. They are mostly PCB. And even if the ones that you do get that are hand wired, they're not done the same way, and certainly not done with the same level of componentry that was available then and or now. They're still just using crap, more or less. But there is Riley in the house, man. Thank you, Mullet. How is it going, my man? Hold on here. Let's do some more housework here. I'm modding up just now, so that way I can just keep an eye on who's kind of coming and going, and just I know that someday the swarm is going to come, and when the swarm comes, I need my blue. I need my boys in blue. You're my boy, Blue. With as much as I talk about other companies, I just kind of get the feeling that someday things boomerang, and I understand that things boomerang, so I know that one day the heat's gonna come. So I don't think I'm saying anything untrue. I'm just trying to stick it to the facts. I don't mean to bash on it. Okay, so let me clarify a couple things right off the bat. You probably never ever heard me say that any of those companies du jour that I just answered sound like doo-doo or sound like crap or are pieces of shit companies or piles of crap amps. All I've told you is that they're not great amps because of the way that they're made. They sound great. They sound fine. There's nothing wrong with the amps. They obviously work. They obviously go the world around and people are happy with them. So there is that. But when it comes down to this whole boutique thing, which I kind of went down that alleyway about who is truly boutique and what boutique is all about. No. It's like the word of the day I was saying. It's when you... I was going off on Victory is more or less what it was, and they call themselves boutique. And Martin Kidd is like the most boutique thing about them. They're not boutique. It would be like hiring me on to Fender and then me designing a Fender amp for Fender to release and saying it's a boutique company because some rando guy in a garage designed that topology for him. That's the equivalent of that at this point. Nobody knows who I am. Everybody knows who Martin Kidd is probably. You know, the Mark Sampson, everybody knows who he was, or probably should know who he was. For those of you who don't know, Mark Sampson has passed away, may he rest in peace, at the beginning of this year. He is the guy who created Matchless. He's the Matchless Amps owner for quite some time, and then Phil Jameson took it over, if I'm not mistaken. I always forget his name. I know it's something Phil, but it's a real show now. But whatever. To me, what makes a boutique company boutique is how it's built. First and foremost, it's made one at a time, right? With independent parts. They're not stamped out, right? So I bring up Dr. Z a lot because he's about the only other company that is from the OG era that I would endorse to that degree, right? each one of those turret boards that he has is hand drilled. They're not stamped out. They don't have this special jig where it just goes bink and then automatically out comes this, you know, perfect board. I think they still hand drill them. Rift Amps is another example of a truly boutique company. His model is a little bit different. I think the predominant side of Rift Amps and Chris with his business model or acumen or whatever you want to call it is repairs and maintenance, and the side aspect of his business is selling amplifiers. It doesn't look like he's moving like a serious number of those things out the door, but certainly more than I am, right? But secondarily to that aspect, so hand stamped, hand punched, one at a time, that whole deal, you know, premium parts. They're using better parts in general. Not all the time, but better than most of the stuff that people are using to just build these kits with, right? Those kit amps that you can buy, you know, that's what I'm referring to. Those are going to use the cheapest parts generally available. Whereas I'm going to be using the $5 per cap or more dollar value cap. You know, many of these kits that you can buy are going to come with the $1 versions. So let's see here. I went with... Oh, okay, what's going on here? 12th to the 19th. That's like 5-something days or more. 7 days. What's up with that? That's quick? I don't know if that's quick, but 900 megabytes though. You're definitely gonna have some speed there. I'm only at 500 megabytes over here, or half gig or whatever you want to call it. It just wasn't worth it for me to go with a gig, and I don't know. This works well for me. So the cameras I'm using are the Ozbots. They work really well. I don't know if how available they are in your country, but I talked about that a little bit yesterday. This little guy right here, we'll touch up on that. I'm going to set it here so it'll remind me, but to continue on with the whole boutique thing, right? So hand done, hand this, better parts, and just put together one at a time. It's not in a factory line. It's just done more appropriately, like the way it should be done, where it's done by human hands pretty much the whole way through. Now, how Mike Z, I'm just going to say Mike Z, but I believe it's Ziet or Ziet, Mike of Dr. Z Amps, the way he's able to keep the prices where they're at is he's able to leverage bulk purchasing, right? So he buys a butt ton of transformers for all of his different amps all at once. He orders all of the shells and cabinetry that he needs for his amps all at once. All the speakers and stuff that he has, he orders them in mass. So he's got enough inventory to be able to do inventory management or inventory control. And that is huge because he can manage his expenditures that way. And the price per unit goes down when you can buy in bulk like that. So for caps that would normally cost me $5 or $6 a piece or more, he can get them for maybe $2 or $3 a piece. Mike has said it a couple times in different posts that he's done, and this kind of gives you an idea of what it really truly costs to get these things out the door. He says for every dollar it costs him to make the amp, $3 to $4 is tacked on top of that for distribution, wholesalers, and retailers. Right? So by the time it gets to Sweetwater's door, another $3 or $4 has been tacked on to that initial dollar that he put into it. So if the amp only costs $2,500, you can kind of extrapolate how that would work down. It probably only cost him $700 to get it out the door, right? Maybe $600 to get it out the door. I can't even get the raw parts for this thing for less than $1,500. Like, I have a lot of the parts left over because I bought some in mass, right? I bought, I needed these nails or something like that, right? So I bought 100 nails. I didn't need 100 nails. I only needed, 16 nails or something like that. Well, now I got 100 of them. But these dog legs, I bought, 10 pairs of these things. I've only blasted through about half of them so far, right? So things like that. The faceplate material, I bought 2 sheets worth of this faceplate material. It's $100 a sheet practically, about 90 bucks a sheet. And one sheet is good for 4 faceplates. And that means two sets of faceplates, so front and back times 2. I burned through 1.5 sheets to get this right. So, but even if I got it right the first time, it's still about $35 or more, almost 40 bucks for that half a sheet that it would have burned up. Imagine that, right? All the knobs and stuff like that. I bought this set of knobs, and this is the set that I decided I wanted to keep on here. The other set of knobs I bought, I'm gonna have to find something for. They were not quite $8 a knob. I think it was like $5 or $6 a knob or something like that. They were not cheap. And I bought a whole set of them for this thing. And I bought these ones, and these were about $1.50 a piece or something like that. And I bought a whole set for this as well. So all those little things, they all kind of add up. You know, the chassis on this thing was probably 120 bucks after shipping to get it here. The transformer, the power transformer alone is over 300 bucks just to purchase it. I think it was, well, it depends on where you get it. I get my transformers from Hawk Electronics or Hawk Engineering. I think it's Hawk Electronics, but if you buy it from them, you can get it cheaper. I think it was like $278 at the time for it, but you have to pay for shipping, and shipping's like 50 bucks, right? So 340 bucks later or whatever it might be, you got it. If you buy it from Antique Electronics or Amplified Parts or whatever the heck it is, or some other company, you're going to end up spending over $300 to get it, but you'll probably get free shipping. So it's a $300 transformer. Another 100, 150 or whatever it is for the output transformer. Name it, right? Set of tubes, you know, you're looking at about 25 bucks a piece for these JJs. Preamps, I mean, you got $150 in tubes easily, right? All these things start adding up. McMaster car, I haven't really gone that far yet. I think once I have, right now I'm buying things in small enough batches that it's more to just test and see what it is I'm going to be happy with. Right, so I'm trying to figure out the standard sizes that I need to have available at all times. And I'm trying to figure out like what exactly is the most useful fastener for the majority of the things I'm trying to do. 200 turrets for like $18. Well, and freaking Andy was talking about going and buying them from Tube Depot. If you buy them from Tube Depot, the turrets, they're like $1 a piece almost, 70 something cents for one of them. And I was like, how on earth are you charging 70 cents per turret? I got mine from Amplified Parts, and they work out to about 30 cents a piece. 30 cents a turret, okay? Imagine that. I don't know how many in here, I didn't count. It's probably like 50, 60 of those turrets in there. The G10 board that I use is pre-perforated. I think that's like a $12, $13 board. The 2 caps that I have on the edge here, on the end that I put in there, those things are like $25 a piece. There's 2 of them. And there's like 4 other caps in there that work out to about $10 or $12 a piece, right? Something right on that point, right? It adds up quick. There's nothing cheap in this thing. The corners on here are $45 for a set. The handle is another 45 bucks. So it's almost 100 bucks after shipping just for the corners and the handle on this thing. The Tolex. Unfortunately, it's like one of those things that Tolex is not exactly cheap these days. This isn't like the super duper wazoo special Tolex. It's just whatever you can get from Mojo Tone or Amplified Parts. They're all the same. They're all coming from the same place. But I think it was like 50 bucks a yard. But the way that they do their yardage is different. As I learned, if you go and watch that video, they come in 54-inch wide rolls, and then they sell it by the yard, right? So you get a 54-inch wide roll by 3 foot or 3.28 feet, right? Whatever that is. That is what 1 unit is. Now that's actually quite a bit of material. If I'd have bought 1 yard, I would have had enough to do this, but it still would have been $50 just in Tolex. I bought like 3 yards worth of it. So I've got enough to build, I think 4 amps in total, or 3, at least 3 if I don't screw up, but I think 4. This is one of them down. I got 2 to 3 more that I can build remaining out of that, you know, well over $100 chunk of Tolex that I got. But there's easily $50 worth of Tolex sitting here. That doesn't include the glue. I like using this stuff here. This can right here is like 15 bucks, and it takes basically a whole can. This was a brand new can, and there's probably about that much left in there, which is pretty much not useful for another project, but hopefully I'll get the next project done and going soon enough to be able to utilize what's remaining in there. So that way I can start salvaging whatever I got left. That's why I buy the smaller pint-sized cans, because it takes about 1 can to do 1 amp. About. Little things like that. The metallurgy around this thing is not freaking cheap. So the stuff for the backside I bought from Home Depot, right? These things here, I think they're like 13 bucks a stick, and it's a 3-foot stick. Well, I think in order to do the back, I need 2 sticks to do it all. One of these isn't quite long enough to do the top and the bottom and still have enough to do the sides. Is more or less what it works out to. So you end up buying 2 of those. So you got, what, $25 in sheet metal just for the back. These guys here, I had to order them from a company. I think it was $100 is what I spent to get, I think it was 4 amplifiers worth. No, 1, 2, 3 amplifiers worth. And it cost a little over $100 for all the metal to do that. The wood, the chunk of walnut in the back of this thing is not cheap. I think that was basically a $30 chunk of wood. The veneer inside of here, it was basically $50 for a sheet that was 2x4. So I got enough to do 4 amps in that one sheet. So that is pretty cheap when you think about it, but all those little things start to stack up. It's not cheap. So metal supplier, yeah. See, I wish, man. So here's the other problem I have. The supplier for Tone Priest, are you still here? I hope you still are, but I'm sure I bored him to death. Winding transformer. Ooh. Okay, yeah, please do hit me up about that. So the gentleman that was making my chassis before, I loved his work. He did a great job. The saw that he used to cut the metal left really clean, beautiful lines. It was square. You know, I got a chunk and I said I want it 17 by 8 by 2.5, and I want the hole for the IEC receptacle in this position. Snapped it like perfect every time. Does a great job. Well, that guy, he shuttered his doors, and I tried to find another provider. Modulus is not selling me something that I would ever spend that kind of money and deal with the tariff taxes ever again. I'm sorry, Modulus, you got some work to do on making chassis that like look the part. I know a lot of these companies are used to having these boxes hidden inside of a box. I don't like hiding the box. I want to see the kibbles and the bits, right? I want to get up in there. So, needless to say, I try to find people that make exceptional products. That's where I'm struggling right now. Out of nice parts instead of Soviet. Yeah, right. I wish it were easy to just find something. Like, I really wish I could have made like Hammond transformers work for me. Now, the thing I do like about the Hammond transformers is that Hammond chassis, not Hammond transformers, Hammond chassis, is that they are spot welded on the sides. But the problem is they're made out of like that 1 millimeter thick material. This is like the 2 mil stuff. This is 0.08 or something like that, I think is what they call it. Whereas that other stuff is 0.04. It's like this thing, it would have tacoed underneath the weight of just the power transformer alone. So it's one of those things where it's just like, no, I can't use those. It works okay for smaller amps and stuff like that, lighter weight, etc., etc. But when you start putting in big dog transformers, it ain't gonna cut it. This one here, you can't really tell from this view, but if you go back through the videos, you can see that I put a transformer shield on here. This transformer is not coming out of this guy. It's got a steel plate underneath it. It is very, very rigid. If this thing does take a tumble, it's gonna bend the chassis first. Hopefully it doesn't, but we'll see. It's got to get shipped across the country. So, yeah, like tin foil, yeah. So Tone Priest, I'm glad you're here. Have you found anybody else? I know we used to use Synaptics there out of South Carolina or whatnot. Did you find anybody else? I tried going with Modulus, and not doing that. I was wondering what your luck has been, if you've found anybody else other than this gentleman here. So for those of you who don't know, Tone Priest there, another channel to go to, check out, and subscribe to. He makes really cool amps. He's got a couple projects that he's been working on lately. He just, oh man, dang it. I was hoping you had better results than I did. But Tone Priest is a lot like this channel here. He's kind of just putting stuff out there, trying to teach you the ways, if you will. And he's, you know, probably again another better player than I am. At least he does the full production for the stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I hate recording. I feel like I'm a good guitarist. I'm not a great guitarist. I'm better than some, but not as good as others, you know. And I hate recording. I just like to play. I like to fiddle, fart around, and you know, whatever. When it comes to actually recording media, like, it's just the last thing I want to do. So I don't know. Check him out because he did a full thing recently with a Soldano style build that he did, a Soldano SLO Naked, I guess is what they call it. And he did a really good job with that one. So just emailed a local metal shop, but okay. Well, let me know if you are able to work things out with them and what kind of level of work they do. If it's anything like this, if they can do this, I will give them my money. I don't care if it costs more money. I want that level of work. As you know, that gentleman did a great job. So, yeah, right. Those head shells, man. But yeah, definitely go check out his channel and subscribe. Let me make that easier for you to do by pulling him up right now. Hold on, just give me a second here while I do just that. We're gonna go at. I just said go do that. I don't care about all that other stuff. Oh, that's why. I'm in the wrong spot trying to do things. Hopefully I didn't kill the stream. Nope, I didn't kill the stream. Good. All right, so we're in a good spot then. Sorry, my apologies. Whoa, he's alive. That was Skrillex. Hold on here. There he is. Found you. All right, hold on. Here we go. Ready? Blam. Oh, I said blam. So this is Tone Priest's channel here. Go check him out. There he is there. Right there. Check him out. He's gonna catch up to me and surpass me someday, I'm sure of it. So you can see he's obviously doing all kinds of stuff. A lot of Soldano stuff there, Tone Priest. You don't like Soldano, do you? This is the one he did just the other day here. Boys are back in town. Him and Riley are gonna do a little guitar off action here. What do we got here? Hey, all right. We got AC playing the Cerberus again. Awesome stuff. It's good to see him playing that thing. So yeah, when pinned pun. Never work on a phone. Oh, really? That's kind of a bummer. Oh, you got to do the pinned thing. Okay, hold on. Oh, I don't know how to do that pinned crap. Hold on, let's see if I can do it. So it's literally at Tone Priest. I mean, you really can't mess that up. Unless you spell it wrong. So I'm going to do this. Somebody else needs to pin it, I think. Because I'm not sure. Let me see. Oh, pin message. There it is. There it is. So now it just stays there, right? So there you go. So I don't know where it's... Yeah, it's pinned down there at the bottom. So check that out. And give him your patronage because he's probably a little more entertaining than I am. He's definitely got a more interesting voice. I'm teasing. I like the way he talks to me. Yeah, right. So, any other questions while we're here? So we got Skraylex's channel mentioned, and now we've got Tone Priest channels mentioned. Is there any other questions? Like Kermit the Frog. I wasn't gonna say it, but that's kind of what it sounds like a little bit. I like it. It's funny. I like listening to you. All right, everybody, here we go. But I'm just poking fun. I just hope you know I'm having fun with you. I already know I'm a dweeb anyway, so. But any other questions? Any other wonderments? Do you agree? Would you concur about that there, Mr. Tone Priest, about my concessions on what makes boutique or not? Am I out of line? Ah. Oh yeah, the Boston thing. You forget about that. I want to try to do that. So I have my friend Michael up the street. He's the one that usually flogs away on these things, but he likes to run his setup unconventionally, I would say. He likes to run into a fully, what would you call it? It's kind of like how I do mine into the Torpedo Captor X here. All right, he does that, but he likes to have the whole like wet, dry, wet kind of thing going on. So it's really difficult to get that re-ingested out into the world. So it's not that I dislike it. It sounds great. It's just really difficult for me to get that back and re-ingest it somewhere else and get the point across the same way that it is in the room there. His is more kind of like a whole studio recording all at once, but it takes a lot of time and effort to get it all set up and going. So, yeah, right. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I definitely would love to get someone else playing it, and that's the hope. That's kind of why I'm stalling with this thing. There's a couple friends that I have down in the LA area. I have a buddy that plays in Versus the World, and another friend that plays in Lagwagon. There's a punk band called Lagwagon. They've been around for a long, long time. But I was hoping to get it in their hands, but I don't know what their schedules look like right now. Versus the World is, I think, getting ready to go on tour, if not on tour currently. So I don't know how viable that is. We'll see. The gentleman that is the guitar tech for Paul McCartney, he was another gentleman I was looking to hopefully get in his hands, but I think they're going out on another wing of their tour here. If he hasn't left this week, it's probably the first part of next week, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get in there quick enough to get it in his hands. He has played my 18-watt design, which is this guy here. He's got one of those on order. So send it to Leaderman. Yeah, right. Click on @TonePriest, then go to channel the link. Yes, that works too. I think when you go to YouTube, you have to like put it in there and then go to channel. For me, the way I did it is I just put it in the search bar. So if you literally just go to Google and put it in the search bar, it'll just pop it right up on the top thing there. But you're not in the app anymore. You're not in app anymore. You're out of app. So, cool. There you go. Tone Priest. We're gonna get some love heading your direction. Let's go. Now you got to send people my way. I'm kidding. But I really do want to try to do that. I also want to do a clean, like go through with this thing to show you what it sounds like clean and with pedals in front of it. I do want to try to show you what it sounds like turned all the way up, so the master volume all the way up and used as more of like a conventional style amp would be. So no master volume, so you just turn everything all the way up, and you literally, this thing has a pretty gnarly output section distortion. I don't know how much like a high watt it actually would sound like, but it seems to have kind of that kerrang that they have, like that astute authority that they seem to have. It's got that. And it does kind of sound more like a plexi, I guess, if you will, in that regard. Mainly because so if you turn volume 2 all the way up with the master all the way up, by the time you get volume 1 up about 10, 11 o'clock, that thing's distorting. Like, you got enough to get the output section working here. And it's pretty gnarly. We'll show that, right? We'll do all that kind of stuff. And then I'll show what this preamp sent into another amp sounds like. Maybe both in the room or just straight up again through another Captor X. So you can just see it's like, yeah, this is a preamp going into a clean amp that's just, you know, reamplified. That sort of deal. That's what we're going to try to do, is all those little things. So maybe this weekend I'll try to get through most of that. I know we're already coming up on the weekend. Tomorrow's Friday, believe it or not. So I got a lot of work to do. But after next week, though, I'm pretty much dead in the water. Why am I dead in the water? Well, I have a pretty big show coming up on the last week of June. And then the following week, I'm heading out to New York to visit this guy. So I'm going to be pretty busy here pretty quick. So basically the 25th through the 28th, I'll be, doing a pretty large event. Be clearing out my garage almost quite literally with all of my stuff to go do the show. And I should say event. It's a pretty sizable event too. And then it's pretty much as soon as I get back, put everything away and fly out to New York to go hang out with this asshole. And then I'll be back from there. It's probably going to take me another week to settle down. So next week, is the last week I'll get to play with this thing and do anything with it. And then the following week, which is like my prep week, my, get focused and dialed in on my upcoming event. This will get shipped out to South Korea, where Grant Us Glorious Tone will then get it hopefully within the next week. And he will start being able to take over the reins and show you what this thing is about. For better or for worse. We're not doing the back and forth where he says, I don't like this, give it a retune. We're not doing any of that. It's done. It goes over there. He's going to do what he can do with it. And that'll be that. So speaking of which, if you're not already subscribed to Grant Us Glorious Tone, do get over there, because if you're interested at all in what this thing is going to turn into, what it sounds like in someone else's hands, and under somebody else's tutelage, if you will, then that's the only other way at this point in time that I know of that we can pull off. So that'll help you keep in touch with that. I wish I could send it all around the world and get it to Riley and everyone else to get their opinions on it. But Riley is in the game. Riley's in the game. He might win. We don't know. Tone Priest, are you in the competition? You're more than welcome to join. We already know that you can play and that you have a cab, so I'm pretty sure your entry's already kind of settled in that regard, provided you just tell Mr. Grant Us Glorious Tone that you want to get involved. I'm not locking it off to anybody. If you can accommodate this thing, you are more than welcome to join. So going back to my previous video, just before this one, if you have a cabinet, a guitar speaker cabinet that can manage 50 watts of power, by all means, send in an entry. By all means. Oh yeah, hell yeah, Riley can play. Are you, Lex? You're in there too, right? So I am not. Ooh, no, I think you need to get in, because you can then, if you decide after, let's say you win. Be kind of cool, because then it'll get sent back to the Americas, and then I can get it over to you, and maybe we can hang out or something like that, because I'll take some time off of work to go hang out with you. And then you can check it out, and if you want to do your own giveaway of it, you're more than welcome to do that too. I'm all about, sending this thing around and getting people. It's the objective is to get it in other people's hands, not mine. I can make this again. I'm already looking at getting parts to make another one. So I encourage you. I know that you're being noble, but I want anybody that can take advantage of this thing to take advantage of it. So to others that saw my last post and earlier in this thing when I was kind of ranting a little bit, I said this is public but not public. I do want you to understand that this is public. It is for anybody that can handle it with at least a 12-inch cabinet that's got a 50-watt speaker in it, right? A creamback will do the job. I got one sitting right here. If I'm not mistaken, which one is this actually? Let's see which one this is. Yep, G12M, it's the creamback. I can't remember what I took it out of, but I got a couple of these things sitting around. Oh, this one's the one that the Schultz is sitting in right now. So the Schultz sugar cone is currently in this cabinet right here. So I need to do a little review on that too. It's maybe something else I'll try to do. So I took that speaker out. That was the creamback that I originally had in this little Seymour Duncan here. And then I put the Schultz sugar cone in there. I think I'll buy another Schultz sugar cone just so I have a pair of them, and I'll try them in, because I have two other 2x12 cabs. These 1x12 Seymour Duncan cabinets are pretty fickle, I guess is the word. He'll take that speaker though. Bet you would. They're just fickle. Like, they're picky about what goes in them. I put some greenbacks in there. Granted, they're the Chinesium ones, not the real ones, but those Chinesium ones in this thing, bleh, didn't work. I tried, I have a pair of, what are the speakers that come in the Jet City amps? I can't remember. They say Jet City on them, right? Whatever they are. They're blue and they say Jet City. They're not horrible speakers, but I tried those in there. Didn't work. I tried the, I have a whole set, 4 of them, of the Sheffields, the PV Sheffields that are for the XXX. I tried them in here. Nope. The creamback is the only one that I've stuffed in this cabinet where I was like, okay, that'll work. It's still a little mid-range, a little stuffy, but when you stack it vertically, it clears up quite a bit. More or less, you need to get these things off the ground to make them really work, it seems. But then I stuck the Schultz sugar cone in this one, the one on the top here, and I think it would work really well on its own if it were on the ground, but I don't know for sure. I haven't done that much yet. I haven't really spent much time trying to check it out, so something else I'll need to do in the near future. But I don't know if there's any other questions. Celestion it is. Celestians are great. I like the Celestians, and I'm particularly impressed by the Creamback series. Now, I have a G12M65. I have a G12M75, G12H75, excuse me. So the H is the heavy, M is the medium weight. One is rated for 65 watts, the other one's rated for 75 watts. The G12H75 is obviously 75 watts. And then I have a Neo Creamback. So I have the Creamback Neo. That one I think is rated for, is it 90 watts? Or is it 60 watts? I don't know. It's about the same as the other two. So I got three of that series to check out. I still need to get the Alnico Creamback. Working on that one. Greenbacks are among the best, and I do agree. But I will say this. Do not get the Chinese ones. You gotta get the Heritage ones, and they recently changed it again. So the new Heritage ones you get are the blackbacks. They're the Rolla version. I almost picked up a set the other day just because they were on sale, but they were on like pre-order. So they didn't even have any of the green Heritages in stock. They only had the blackback Rolla stuff. And I was like, I'm not really stuck on stupid with the whole blackback, Rolla stuff. I wanted the Ipswich or whatever it was, England, wherever the original ones were made. I just wanted the Heritage version of the greenback. Those ones are a little bit mellower in the top end while having all that woody bottom that I think everybody really likes about them. Now, these ones here that I have, the Chinesium ones, definitely have the woody bottom, but there's just not as full. Like, it's a little on the thin side. Woody in good kind of woody sound, but then they have like this high frequency spike to them that's just like, I don't know. Whereas the actual made in England ones are definitely a little bit mellower on the top, and maybe they still have that peak on the top, but it's just mellowed out a little bit. It is Ipswich, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, okay, made in, yeah, exactly. England, Ipswich, England. Oh, I got my pinky up while I drink. I kid, I'm teasing. Only because that's not how Riley sounds when he talks. Right? Fuck you. I love listening to Riley. He's so freaking funny. Yeah, that's someone else. If you guys I don't know if I can pin multiple things. So go to Riley's channel. It's at Riley 0187. Okay. So go to at Riley 0187, and that is, hold on here. Maybe I can just do this. No. Go to channel. Hell yeah. Damn it. Why didn't I think about that the first freaking time? Go to here. All right. Go to this guy right here. So if you go to channel, that's where you're going to go. He's got Monkey Amp or Amp Monkey News or whatever. He's been talking about him. Him and I are going to come up with something. He's going to let me know how you want to do that, Riley. I will certainly come to your channel. Do subscribe to him. Help him out, please. Get him going. But he's gonna do some stuff. But he's also got some posts about the giveaway here. He's also built a Soldano, kind of amp. But his stuff is definitely much more entertaining than mine, to say the least. Which is to say that he's just much more fun and interesting than I am. So definitely go check him out. So do it now. Yeah, right. He is absolutely a hoot and a holler. That is for sure. So you guys were asking me about this thing, and I sat it here to remind myself of it. And I'm sorry, Offset, and I believe it was you who asked me about this. So this thing here is it's a thermal master is what it's called. It's not mine, it's a buddy of mine's. I did use this to see how this thing is running temperature-wise. I can tell you right now, not very warm. The screen grids, even after being on for like 5-10 minutes, they're ice cold. Like they barely even know that the amp's on. The transformers obviously don't know that the amp's there. They're room temperature more or less. I think they were 80 degrees or something like that. The hottest things in this amp are, of course, the tubes. The tubes are obviously like 300 plus degrees or something like that. The only other thing that was in this thing that was running hot, if you want to call it hot, was the thermistor. But the thermistor does run hot. It is meant to be hot. That's why it's called a thermistor. It's a negative temperature coefficient. The hotter it is, the more of a wire it becomes, if you will. Whereas the colder it is, the less of a wire it becomes. It resists current flow when it's cold. And then as it gets hot, it enhances current flow. So actor, musician, autist. But everything else was ice cold. The heater wires were all the same temperature all the way through the entire string. So I did a good job there. And when I say they were the same temperature, that is to say that you could see a heat signature from this on them. It was all of 80 degrees. So they were just on. They were just doing something. But from the transformer running out to the power tubes, from the power tubes and its string, and then the string that runs off to the other preamp tubes, all the same temperature. Which means that I did a really good job of balancing those strings. So I think I mentioned to everybody that I split at the first tube, the first power tube. So it's about 3 amps, I think, on one string, and another, whatever it was. It worked out to be about the same kind of current draw given the length of the wire for each of them. So temperature-wise, they were doing the same amount of work. So all 5 preamp tubes on one string was about 1.5 amps or something of total current. It was about 1.5 amps of current to the first node of things going. Same all the way around. It's easy peasy. Ray Charles impression. Huh? He did, what was the one that you did the other day? Was it John Fogerty? You did a little impression of him. And weren't you Einstein or something the other week too? I thought you did Einstein or something too. But so yeah, temperature-wise in this thing, it's ice cold. There are a couple resistors here and there that are just a little bit warm. Obviously, they're in the preamp side of things. So a little bit of current is at least flowing through those particular dropper resistors. But as far as things go, there was nothing alarming. Like even the resistors that were warm were, maybe 100 degrees or something like that. So well within well within spec. So I think everything in this thing is rated for 205C. So none of the caps are running hot. The freaking dropper resistor, the first node dropper resistor, that big one that fits between the two big black, or the two big blue caps, ice cold, like it wasn't even on. Let's see if I can remember what 205C to Fahrenheit is. I believe it's something like ridiculous 401 degrees. Everything in here is rated for 205C, 400 degrees. There was nothing in here getting close to 400 degrees. The hottest thing in this thing, the hottest part inside this entire amp was the thermistor, and it was just over 200 degrees. You wouldn't want to touch it with your fingers. You'd probably definitely get a blister, but it's rated for 205C. Let's confirm that. It's a CL80. So let's go CL80 thermistor temperature range. Let's see what it says. It is rated up to 175C. My apologies. So it is good to 347 degrees Fahrenheit. I was at well over 100 degrees of safety margin there. So my apologies. It's rated for between minus 50 degrees C and 175 degrees C. So that's the safe environment for it. So it's, as far as it's considered, it's got another 100 degrees to go. And I don't think we're going to get, there's no reason why it should get 100 degrees hotter. So not worried about that. Okay, yeah. Oh, wow. That'd be so... Go, Riley. Let's go. Get on it. So just to show you what I was talking about here, so I'm not crazy, right? So Amphenol, it's what I got in there. CL80 thermistor, NTC, yada, yada, yada. It's in its comfort zone. Which is high operating temperature under steady current. The resistance drops significantly. So yeah, she did good. She's doing good. Anyway, dude, I answered all the questions. So now you know that Riley is a funny mofo. So you definitely have to go over to his channel and subscribe, right meow. And then check out his thing because he's going to have some fun. I'm sure of it. Let the caps bleed out through the resistor. So I don't like doing the whole safety bleed crap thing. I don't bother with it. Interestingly enough, I was in here when I was doing all the work to make the preamp work right, and it would self-discharge within a few moments after being turned on. Now, I think what it is that the IEC thing in here has like a conductive path for it. It's kind of got all that stuff built in. To be honest, like a lot of people, I think, put these safety resistors needlessly in these things, thinking it's a false sense of security. The reason I don't like them is it is a constant current sink. It is another device that is in the path that is doing nothing but giving you a false sense of security. You put that 220K resistor in there, it is sinking some amount of current out of your path, so it's drawing down and creating a little bit of a load on your HT rail, if you will. It's great for balancing if you need to balance multiple caps, but I don't like stacking caps. There's some arguments either way about doing it and having the extra media in there, I guess. So is 2 caps better than 1 if they equal the same value? You know, sure, if you like stuffing your amp full of more, you know, what do they call that material that's in there? You know what I mean? Like when you got to have a wall of caps that goes from one end of the amp to the other, it's kind of like, ugh, really? Do we need that? Especially if I'm already running these things at 100 volts, just about 100 volts below their rating, right? And because of the thermistor, they don't really spike up beyond their rating. Well, beyond the 400 volts much. This amp with no load in it, which is to say no tubes whatsoever, would probably run at about 430 volts. All the caps in here are rated for 500 volts, right? So they've got damn near a 70 volt window of space. So they're well within margin. They're in the safe zone. if I run a pair of caps, you don't have to put that balance resistor in there. You don't have to put it there. They put it there as a way to try to balance the voltage across them, the two caps that you stack in series with each other, and to allow a path out of the amp for safety ground. But the problem is it's a constant current sink, if you will, and it's a false sense of security. It just allows the electrons to discharge into the chassis. Turn the freaking amp on. You unplug the power, turn the amp on. It's the same thing as turning the amp on. And the amp itself will do what it does to clear all the voltage out. When I was working on it, I tested it a couple times just to see if they were holding like 300 or 400 volts in there. Within 2 minutes, it was even less than that. It was almost immediately. It was discharging most of the voltage out. You touch it down there the first time and it would spike for a second at like 200 volts. So it already lost half the voltage. And then you're like, okay, cool. And then by the time you went to check another one, it had already dumped the remainder of the voltage out and you're sitting at like 10 volts or something like that. So more or less you go boop with your finger right on it and it was never going to bother you. So I use, so in these amps, I use the Cornell Doubliers, the CDMs. I use the SM branded stuff, the cheap ones, for prototyping. So I have a bunch of either because I don't want to, obviously these Cornell Doubliers are not cheap. I think many of them are $5 plus a piece. And that's even for like the 250 PF. The 500 PF stuff that I'm using inside of my 18 watts, those things were, at least at one point in time, $15 a piece. I think they're still like $10 or $12 a piece, but they're not cheap. And I use those in my 18 watt design. They're pretty sizable too, but 500 PF, 1000 volt rated, not cheap. And that's for, again, Cornell Doublier or the Zoso. I use the Zoso ones in the 18 watt design. But the CDMs are not any cheaper, whereas the SM branded ones are pretty cheap. You know, a couple, $1 will buy you one, right? So, beautiful Earth, welcome, come on in. So yeah, for anything that I put out that's a production, it's gonna have CDM or better. Orange drops a piece at the moment. You know, I'm not too sure. They're not that expensive. They used to be a little bit pricier than they have been recently. I was actually kind of shocked how cheap they were. $4.99, $5. Someplace the Cornell Doublier Knowles version of them are like $2.35. $2.99 at the Art of Tone, so $3. It seems like the average going price is right around the $5 to $6 mark, though, depending on what value you go with. So they're not superfluously expensive. Andy and I were talking last night, actually, about different caps, and he was like, well, which ones do you use? And I was like, I use the Zosos. They're just inarguable level of quality. It's not that they're the best sounding or the worst. They're just inarguable quality. I've never had a problem with them. They sound fine to me. They are a little darker than some of the other brands, which I don't mind that at all. I like a slightly darker cap because it's a little bit easier to make the amp bright if you need to. I built an amp with all Vichys once, and that amp was definitely a lot brighter than I thought that design should have been. So, you know, if I'm splitting hairs on it, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with the Vichys, although I did have a couple that failed on me with that build. So I am kind of certainly not sold on the Vichys at the moment, although I would say that, again, they're of inarguable quality. They're not horrid. They're not, you know, the generic cheapo ones. But, you know, pick your poison. They're humongous, though. That's the other, yeah, that's the big thing about the orange drops. They're ginormous. Jupiters are probably the most expensive and I think oversold caps there are. They're cool. They do their thing. People probably believe they got their mojo, but they're overtly expensive and they are a bit larger than most of the other designs. Now, the Zoso caps are also a little bit larger than some of the other ones. The Vichys are a bit smaller, and the Mallorys are a bit smaller. Now, I have not built an amp entirely out of Mallorys yet. I do have some Mallorys that I have used in positions, but I have not ever built an amp that I can recall with a full set of Mallories. With the ones that I have used, I can't say that I've noticed anything wrong with them. I think the Mallories are definitely a step above the Vichys. So if I had to put, you know, I don't like the orange drops. I do not like them. I think they look like hell. They, like Tone Priest mentioned, they're huge. They are brighter, and there's confusion surrounding them. There are two different variants of them now. There's the 715 series and the 716 series. And I cannot remember which one is the one that is least liked. I think it's the 716 series that people don't like. It's a little bit brighter still. I don't like bright, so I tend to go with things that just sound good. I have a full set of the Zoso blue caps, which are supposed to be more like the Astrons, I guess. I'm guessing, I don't know. I want to build an amp utilizing all of those to see. My understanding is that the blue ones are a little bit brighter than the yellow ones. So most all of my amps come with the next gen yellows. In this amp, there is a Vichy though. There's one that's a 0.1 UF. I needed to use it because the space that I had allotted that I needed to run a 0.1 UF did not allow for a Zoso to fit in there. It's like the Zoso was like 3 times the size of that Vichy. So there is a Vichy in here. It sounds great to me. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't know. The orange drops are probably my least favorite. I don't think I'd ever use those if I had to choose in my life. I would say next on my list above those would be the Vichys. Next on my list above that would be the Mallories. Then the Jupiters, and then the Zosos. Zosos are my favorite. I want to buy a set of Jupiters to try in an amp and do a build with those. They're just expensive. They're not cheap. They're almost double, not quite double, but they're definitely more expensive than the Zosos, and the Zosos are already pretty expensive. And they're all the values that they have are not always readily available, which kind of bums me out and upsets me at the same time. So I like availability. I want to be able to just go to a couple different places and be able to find the part that I want. Amplified Parts is where I get a lot of my stuff from, and I know that Andy hasn't had much luck there. I've had nothing but good luck. So far, I've had nothing but luck. I haven't had much bad luck anywhere, to be honest. But in the near future, I am going to get a set of... I almost picked them up today, but I don't do that. I told myself don't. I almost picked up a full set of the Mallory 150 in the white. I almost bought the Tube Depot sells a whole, like, what do you call it, technician kit worth of them. So it's got like 20 of the .022s. It's got like 10 of the, another 20 of the .01s and 10 of the .1s. It's got like a bunch of all the different values in all the common sizes that we use in these things. And the price was pretty good. I think there was like 80 something caps total, 83 or 89 for like $180 or something like that, or $160. It worked out to, a few bucks a piece. So pretty good price. Overdrive sound good after Pi? I don't know. Oh, paper and oil. Okay. Does Tolex stick to paint? Well, yes and no. So it's not the Tolex that you're really worried about, because the Tolex isn't what sticks to anything, to be honest. Tolex is kind of more like a vinyl material with a canvas back. So it has a, it's got a unique material. I'm walking over here to get some that I have laying out. I gotta work my way through a disaster zone though, so bear with me. I have a little strip sitting here. Yay, cool. So I used this on something else that I was building a while back, the purple hazel in fact, and this was like the end piece that I cut off. So this is what it looks like on the back side. So this is the front, all right, purple. And then it's got this canvas-like material with some tooth is the word I was looking for. So it allows some tooth. The way it's woven, by the time you grind in this stuff here, like it is adhered to this surface, and you can see here's what's kind of left of it after the fact. All right, it kind of is dried up and curled up. Focus, you fack! Right, you can kind of see how it just lays in there. Well, when you stick it to itself, it's been out for too long right now. It's dry, it won't stick to itself, but there's like a certain point where when you put this stuff on here and on the surface that you want to stick it to, you let it dry for 10, 20 minutes. And then when you stick it to there, it's not going to come off. That's where the depends comes in, excuse me. Paint, it will stick for sure to it, but it depends on how well your paint sticks to your metal. So I would say that there's a possibility that you go to pull that off and it'll take the paint off with it and leave raw metal underneath. So it'll just rip the paint off. I had to, on the purple hazel, no, not the purple hazel, the last giveaway amp I did, the Peacemaker, I biffed it literally on the last freaking corner. So I had gotten all the way around the thing and biffed it on the last corner and cut into the main material that was already, you know, adhered to the body. You cannot imagine the number of expletives and how much anger I had at making that mistake that late in the game. But needless to say, the only answer is to just rip that crap off and get it done before it literally turns into a solid, you know, glue piece. What had happened is that you can strip it off fast enough that it actually just peels the whole thing off in a layer. So it would take the Tolex and it would take the glue off of the wood for you, and it would just clean the wood really, really well. But there were a couple spots where it actually tore out a couple little chunks or little shards of the wood. So it can stick well enough that, you know, you're never going to get it off without taking something else with it. So there's that. But it depends on how good the surface that you're putting it on. A very, very smooth, greasy surface is probably not going to adhere very well with that contact adhesive. So there's a lot of depends on that one. I think it's really meant to go like fabric to some other like toothed. When I say toothed, I mean something that the glue can soak into and grab adhesion with. Metal, probably not so great, but it'll probably stick. I'm sure it'll stick. But as soon as that metal gets hot, it's just going to bubble off. That kind of thing. Moisture ingress. You know, metal doesn't absorb moisture, so if it does get wet, it's just going to try to find its way underneath and then it'll peel off. That sort of thing. Wood doesn't seem to be as bothered by it, but I'm sure if you get this thing wet enough that it bleeds through the rubber and gets into the wood, I'm sure it'll start to weaken the glue. Bumblebees, yeah. I don't know much about them to be either. I don't know much about them, I should say. Low Budge, take care, my man. Thank you for coming in. They're humongous. Yeah, we went through that. Paper and oil. I don't even know where I don't know where the bumblebees are, to be honest. I have seen them before. There's a couple different places. I'm not a huge fan of the whole bumblebee thing. I don't like those. That's something else that Andy and I were talking about last night. So what are some expensive resistors that you can get today? All right. So like, what are some of the more expensive resistors that you can buy that everybody says you got to have the right kind of amp these days? It's those carbon comp resistors, those giant freaking ugly brown turds. The literally, from the objective standpoint of what a resistor is supposed to be, the absolute worst piles of doo-doo on the planet, right, are those carbon comp resistors with the freaking brown material and the giant paint stripes on them. Wood filler does not stick to good. Oh, okay, that's good to know. Luckily, I only use wood filler in like small cracks and stuff, so it's not a whole lot of wood filler on there. Sand, scuff, and done. Yeah. definitely want a toothed surface for adhesion. And you do not want to sand your cabinet smooth. So let's say you're making a wood cabinet. You would think that you want to leave it smooth. No, you actually want to use probably at the highest grit, like 150. Definitely don't go higher than 220. For wood, 220 is good enough to paint with, right? That's paint quality at 220, but you want tooth. You need tooth. So make sure on the wood, you leave it pretty much as rough as it comes. You do want to clean it out. You don't want dust. So you want to wipe it down and make sure that it's dust free. So blow it off or whatnot, but don't spend too much time trying to sand it and make it look pretty. You want it to be kind of rough. So there's that. Now, getting back to the resistors, back in the days of yore, when they were making these amps en masse, everybody always says, oh, the mojo is in those stupid freaking brown little turds, the carbon comp resistors. What it was is back in the day, the cheapest resistors you could get were those carbon comps. Right? That's the cheapest thing you could get. And then it kind of swapped over at some point where carbon comp wasn't as cheap anymore, and then it was metal film was like the cheapest you could get. So then everything started coming with the metal film stuff. Pretty much a lot of the cheap amps that you get these days, if it is a blue colored resistor inside of there, it's more than likely a metal film resistor, right? That's just kind of how it is. It's how you can kind of tell the colors. Those beige colored ones, those are going to be carbon film. And then those ugly brown ones with the painted bumblebee stripes on them and stuff like that, those are the carbon comps that I speak about. Well, years and years ago, those were the absolute cheapest freaking resistors you could get. And that's what they put in these things. And here we are 50 years later going, oh, to get that mojo, you got to have these carbon comp resistors. Bullshit. Probably some of the best resistors you can put in your amp is actually the metal oxides, believe it or not. Now, the metal oxides are used mainly in the power supply and the HT rails. They handle heat really well. They don't catch on fire when they get hot. And, you know, if something goes wrong, like they're going to hold together better. Like they're definitely more accurate. They are more temperature stable. They have very low shot noise, etc., etc., etc. I like the metal films myself. I do not find any limitation to using metal film. I have several different versions of this 18-watt design. This one here has metal film in it. Believe it or not, it's all metal film with the fucking blue stuff. Sounds great. I love it. I built another one using all the DVII ones, and interestingly enough to me, it sounds darker. Not necessarily worse or better, just sounds a little bit darker than the other one that I built as another prototype where I used all metal film again. So I wanted to see if there was an actual difference between the DVII metal film and the cheap generic metal film. So I built two amps like that. And interestingly enough, I would almost admit that I would prefer to have the one with the cheap metal film. It has a brightness to it that is nice. It works really well for that design. But the overall quality, I think, still kind of in favor of the DVII ones, right? Those brown colored ones that I use, like in this one here. So it does make a difference, but is it enough of a difference? I don't know. Yeah, kind of looks, like they're cast out of sand. I don't have any readily available, I don't think. Maybe I do. Maybe I got one sitting here. Oh, what do you know? I got one sitting here. So this is like one I got out and didn't use. Focus, you. There it is. So there's a little 1K. So these are the Dale. It just says Dale, and then it's like a CM F60 or whatever it is. So that's what I use. I like them. They're great, I think. I've never had a problem with them. Never had one fail. That kind of stuff. Proven carbon comp produces a nice second order harmonic when the voltage is applied, but I still wouldn't use them. I don't know if they produce a second order harmonic, because I mean, how much voltage are we talking about though? Like any voltage or a certain voltage? And most of the companies now that are using those carbon comps are not using them as plate resistors. They're using them only in the signal path. And I would argue that the plate resistor is probably the more important part. And if not there, certainly the cathode. Like the plate and the cathode is more or less where the tone really kind of originates, if you ask me. It's not so much the signal path itself, because you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference when you put those in the plates and in the cathodes. But there's just so many different variations to play with. Like if you build an amp and use all the same resistor type in the whole of the thing, and it sounds good, then it is good. Try it again with something else. I did. I actually kind of think I would prefer the brighter tone of the metal films that I did use, but it's, how do you sell that to somebody though? Like, I don't think, it's not that it sounded that much better. It's just a preference, you know, that it's just easier to have that brightness there. If that's worth it to you, I don't know. On the plates, that's why they use them on plates. Okay. Okay. I love audio terminology. Trying to describe a sound. Well, that's the hugest problem there, Lone Dog. Like, you're trying to describe something that you can't see, and you as a person cannot hear. Only I can hear it. And then my reality may not align with your reality, i.e. our ears are not the same. So even if we are in the same room at the same time, your perception of what it sounds like is different than what my perception of what it sounds like is. So that's the hard part, is how do you quantify it? So we come up with these really weird words like bloom and second order harmonics. Nobody knows what freaking second order harmonics is. We do, because we understand what it is. We can envision it in our heads, but try explaining what a second order harmonic is to somebody who doesn't give a shit. Like, it's just, you know, like spaghetti on the wall. Okay. But it's hard to describe like some of these things about it. I don't know. I don't try to buy into the hype on a lot of these things. So that's why I do have these little tests that I do. I'll run an amp with all of one type of this. I'll run an amp with all one type of that. And the hope is that I'll get to a result that quantifies, okay, this is what that does, this is what that does. Does it matter? No. There's so little difference. It's so minute. It is splitting hairs, and it's still going to come down to subjective reality. Excuse me. So when I say subjective reality, it's, again, it's what I think it sounds like and what you think it sounds like are two different things. So for better or for worse. Ooh, what do we got? My mom's sending me some pictures. Oh, dang. Oh, shoot. My nephews are in town. Okay. I do. So I guess I know what I'm doing this weekend. I'm going to go meet my nephews. Awesome. So my brother's in town is what that means. My brother's in the military. He's in the Air Force. And he's stationed out in Kansas City, Kansas. I think he's getting ready to retire. I heard he was going to be out here, but I thought it was going to be more in August, not now. But in either case, my nephews are out here, so I'm going to go over this weekend and go hang out with them for sure. Okay, so yeah. The same road I'm trying to describe. You design an amp trying to achieve a certain sound for customers. That's more or less what it is for me. It's just, you know, it's like, again, inarguable quality. Why do I use Zosos instead of the Mallories? I just think that the Zosos are a little bit warmer, and I think that they just are inarguable quality. I've had good results with them. Every amp I build with them, they have a sound that I can easily work around. I know what to expect with them. Same thing with the DVII resistors. Like, I've built enough amps with them that I just know what I'm getting every time I put them in there, and I cannot argue with the sound, and nobody can argue with the objective quality. So the objective part is the part that I focus on. The subjective part is the sound of the amp, and, you know, I can tune those things in and out. I built the same amp twice with two different sets of parts, And I do prefer the other one, but does it make a subjective difference? Objectively, it doesn't meet my criterion because the parts are of subjectively lower quality, or objectively lower quality, excuse me. So subjectively, I don't care, because if the other amp sounds that, that close to it and it's using better quality parts, then if it's a matter of making it that much brighter to tickle that fancy for me, then that's what I'll do, is I'll just make it that much brighter. I can tune that stuff out. So yeah, at least that's my mindset anyway. I don't ever want somebody to come up to me and be like, oh, you're using alpha pots? Like, bro, what's up with that? Like, you should be using CTS in your amps. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody ever is going to say that. Freaking alpha pots for the win. I tried using CTS because this Kit amp actually came with CTS in it. And it had that situation where the knob just felt like rough and like, and you turn it and you can actually hear it like gritting along. But then, and you get it to the very bottom. Oh, these things are just so butter smooth. Like it feels right. That's the thing. So that's why I like the alpha. They got that thick grease in there. So when you move it, it's just nice and smooth and it feels firm. You have to grip it and stick it. But the CTS, when you got down to that last little bit, it would just cut out. And then you had like another eighth of a churn that did nothing. But when you got it up to the point where you started getting any kind of volume at all, you move it, you just so much as touch it and it goes bam, and it's all the level. It's just like, son of a bitch, I just want the smooth transition from nothing to something, right? Enter alpha. Alpha pots have the feel, they have the transition that you want, the sweep or whatever you want to call it. It's just blam, it's better. CTS for me works really well in guitars though, because they kind of work in the opposite orientation for you. So the CTS pots in guitars, most of the time we turn our guitars all the way up. So when you transition from all the way up to towards down, you've got this nice smooth transition. It feels right. Whereas the alpha for me doesn't seem to do that as well. So up here at full volume, and it transitions down, it seems like there's this sweep or this area where it's not doing what I expect it to do. Not to mention the fact they're also really, really stiff because of the grease that they use, so you really have to get your fingers on it. It's not really easy to manipulate with just your pinky or something. So CTS does better at that because they are much easier to manipulate. And coming off of full volume and trying to turn it down, they seem to just get the job done in the way that you expect. I'm not sitting there trying to manipulate the guitar down to like whisper quiet levels, using the pot. I don't think many guitarists really do. When I turn the pot all the way off, it's to mute the guitar. So that last little sweep there, I don't really care about. And to be honest, I would dare say that if you're that worried about that last little bit, putting in the treble bleed kits that they make for these things probably would resolve that anyway. I know that those treble bleed kits kind of make the sweep a little bit more natural towards the bottom, while also keeping the guitar nice and bright. So, I don't know. No, I love alpha pots. I don't like the Borns. There's something about being able to flick the pot all the way to the one end and have it have enough mass on the pot or on the knob itself to actually make it bounce off the stops. Like those things, they feel cheap to me because there's zero resistance. So it's just like you touch it and it moves, and it just moves enough that you're just like, I don't like the Borns pots. I'm sorry. I know Andy loves them, but these ones here, like you have to put an affirmative touch. Alpha requires an affirmative touch to get what you want. Yeah, right? Guitar, variable. Guitar amp, full up. But I don't know. That's a me thing. With having played for 30 years, there are just certain things about how I want the guitar to do certain things, and there's certain things I expect a guitar amp to do. And one of the things that just disgusted the ever-living shit out of me Recently, I went to Guitar Center and they had one of those SLO, you know, the new ones, the BAD versions. I think it was a mini, so it wasn't like their top dollar version, but it, you know, it had the same knobs on there that you would get on the big one. And I thought, you know, let's just see what they're using on these things, right? So I went over and I turned the pot, and it felt like a fucking toy. You could tell that they were using the mini pots in there. You know, the cheap shit. Like, it felt disgusting. Like, you could feel the grittiness. It wasn't firm. It was almost like a cross between a CTS and a Bournes almost. And it was just like, ugh, it felt cheap. Felt cheap. These ones, even with these knobs on there, they feel expensive. So expensive, like butter. Even the dual gang pots that are in here feel like butter. Like butter. Yeah, certain sound, and you want the amp to respond in a certain way. Hell yeah. Yep, exactly. Lone Dog, on point. They just have to do that thing. Now, everybody's idea of what it needs to do is, of course, different. So I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but it just, in my experience, the best luck I've had with pots and guitars has been CTS, to be honest. But again, they kind of work in an inverse orientation. Usually the guitar is all the way up, whereas amps generally are not. I'm not trying to play an amp at the bottom, but when I want it to be quiet, I want to have like this spot where it's quiet. This one is a little bit touchier. Now, it could be the pot, or it could just be the circuit itself. There's just this notch where it's just not doing much, and then it starts to get with it. But it's usable. You can play this thing at whisper soft levels, and you can find that spot in there where it plays at the level you need. It's just, if you give it too much of a touch at a certain point, it's going to go from, you know, it's not like the Fenders are, where it's nothing, 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 and then you get a little bit of sound in it, and then you move it another, you know, 1/100th of an inch, and all of a sudden it's full bore. It's not like that. But I'm just being honest in that it is a little bit touchier than I'd like it to be, but it is usable. Yep. And that's the hard part too. Like, you cannot please everybody, and I know that you cannot please everybody. And I'm not trying to say that I have something that is definitely going to please everybody. I've said it before that a good sound engineer is one that can make 7 out of 10 people in the room happy. The other 3 people can go fuck themselves. That's just a tongue-in-cheek way of saying that the sound guy, you know, a good one is just going to make the majority of the people in the room happy. And there's always somebody that you cannot make happy. It doesn't matter. The reason why it's 7 out of 10, to me, the reason I say it that way is that, you know, 70% is enough to be majority, right? 2/3 majority. Like, it's inarguable at that point that, you know, this mass over here says it sounds great. You're the only 3 over there, and you've got a varying degree of nastiness towards what it is. You know, number 10 says it's the worst sound he's ever heard. Number 9 is like, I just don't like it. Number 8's like, well, I'm on the fence, but, you know, I think it could be better, right? And the other 7 are like, fuck, sounds great to me. Those 7 win. The other 3 can get the fuck out. So I know that, and I think that's obviously why there are so many different designs of amps. Like, you can't, it's kind of shocking when you think about it. Like, Mike Soldano pretty much made his entire career off of predominantly one design. Now, he did have a couple of other designs most people aren't too in tune with. The Avenger, which is more or less the SLO 100 or SLO 50, whatever it was. I think the Avenger is the only option that came in 50 watts. I think the SLO only came in 100-watt versions. If it was 50 watts, I think it was the Avenger. But it was essentially the same amp. It just, I think he used different transformers or something. Minute differences. Essentially the same amp. And then he made like the Atmos or something like that, or the Astro or something. There was one other type of design that he made that was a little obscure. I think it was the Astro or something like that, but it wasn't as popular. So he maybe only had a handful. Like you can probably count on one hand all the different designs that he had. And you just spat out my kids 6 and 7. Yeah, right. 6, 7. Funny. That is funny. But you know what I mean? Like literally a handful of designs, and it carried him for damn near what, 40 years or something like that before he retired. Thereabouts. Yeah, right around 40 years. I think he started in the early 80s. So not quite 40, but about 40 years, yeah. So not bad to have a very small list of things. I don't know, but that's, most other companies have a multitude of amps. Like even Marshall has multiple different designs, more than a handful, believe it or not. And that's not even between all of their different, what do you call it? Like tiers, if you will. Because they still have their Plexi, they still have their like JCM series, they have their DSL series, they had their TSL series there for a bit, the triple super leads. They had their what was that one? The JVM. They had their JVM series, which was like their creme de la creme, like everything, the 4-channel versions. And then they had their cheap stuff with their valve states and their MV series or whatever the hell it was. You know, so they had several different tiers and a lot of different models and stuff. Now they got the Marshall codes. They had the Marshall, the cheap tube versions that they made, the class 5s and the class 10 and whatever, like, you know, the class series. And those are even a far, that's the thing that's kind of frustrating about that series there. Like the class 5, the class 10, or the class 20 or whatever it was. Like they had an opportunity to basically give you their creme de la creme amp at a lower wattage or whatever, but they went completely off the rails with a totally different design. It's not, you know, when you get a class 5, it is not a Plexi. It's a completely different topology in there. It sounds like a Marshall. It does kind of the Marshall thing. It's not that it sounds bad. It just isn't, I don't know. It's like, why did they go out of their way to do that? They did the same thing with their MA series or whatever that is already discontinued. So their MA series was like their more affordable, you know, JCM 800s and whatnot. And again, they did that thing where they could have just given you a slightly cheaper version, if you will, of the JCM 800 or whatever you want to call it. But no, they went in there and they started changing a bunch of stuff to make it a fundamentally different amp that just had that Marshall kind of thing going for it. And it was kind of like a modified Marshall that wasn't really modified in a way that any other Marshall was modified. It's kind of annoying. I almost picked one up because the price was right years and years ago, but I got frustrated because it sounded like ass. Realistically, it sounded thin and kind of just bleh. But then you go and you get in touch with the real one, and it's just like, oh, cool. You know, like the stuff they were making in the 70s and early 80s was definitely freaking cool. It sounded right because they put more of their effort into that smaller lineup of amps. Because in the 1980s, what did they have? They had, what, JTM 45s, more or less. They had their Plexis, so their JTMs, their Super Leads, which more or less turned into their JCM series, right? So they only had, what, 4 or 5 different models, I think, at the time. Sans some of their odd stuff that they built out in the 90s. They came out with the solid-state version of the JCM 800. So JCMs were sitting on, yeah, right? Stacks of empty 412. I remember the first time I saw Sticks, and this was in the 90s. They did a show, and I kid you not, it was impressive. They had 4x12 Marshall stacks from one end of the stage all the way to the other. I mean, it must have been 40 feet of Marshall stacks on either side, all with a head on the top. And it's crazy to think that only one of them might have actually been doing anything. Looked impressive as all hell, though. I would hate to be the guy that was loading that truck knowing that all of those things were empty and they were just there for looks. But I still had to move them as a unit, stack them, and all that, you know, that kind of crap. I was this close to buying a JCM 800. I want to say it would have been like 2000, right around in 2000. We're going back to our origin story. Tone Priest kind of knows what I'm about to talk about here. So I ended up getting the Crate Blue Doo-Doo. And the Crate Blue Voodoo had already been out for a couple years by that point in time. I got the version that was like the V2, so they'd gotten rid of that like weird script bubble logo that looked like splattered paint or something like that. They'd gotten away to that and went to the more, you know, type font or banker's font or something like that. So it looked more serious than like a toy. And I liked the look of it. It was cool. It had the gold corners, had the gold accents on the handle. You know, it had the gold tip knobs, kind of like a Marshall would. It looked nice. It was a nice amp. It sounded okay. There wasn't anything superfluously wrong with it. And when I played it versus like the only other amps that I could afford were the Valve State. I'm glad I didn't go that route. So the Valve State was on my short list. The Crate Blue Voodoo was on the short list. I did check out a couple of like the B52 amps that were available at the time. Those sounded like dog shit then even. Like, it's crazy to think that the B52 was like Ignitor's entry into, entry level, mass production, get somebody to just spend their money on you type of thing. And even those sounded like dog crap compared to the SLM unit that I was playing. So Crate at the time was made by SLM, which is St. Louis, or SLE. No, it was SLM. I can't remember. St. Louis is where they were based out of. But they, oh God, those things were horrible. But then I checked out a JCM 800 and a Mesa Dual Rec. And the Dual Rec was definitely out of my price range. Just the head alone was the price of what I was able to afford for a head and a cap. The JCM was a little bit cheaper, but it was still kind of just out of my range. And I was just like, damn, it's like I could get the head and I'd still have enough money to put like a down payment on the cab. But I was like, I wanted the whole stack all at once. And I was more or less taking out a loan to get it all anyway. But I could walk out that day if I wanted to with the whole half stack of the Crate Blue Voodoo thing for about the same price as I could for the head of just the Mesa Boogie. At this point right now, I can tell you I'm glad I went the route that I did, because I'd probably be in the situation now where I still have that freaking Dual Rec and I wouldn't be able to find anybody to work on it, and I would be cursing at myself every time I tried to myself. I have not played, yeah, right. Just a few mods. So I did do a couple mods to that amp. I actually modified the gain channel to be more like a JCM 800. So I cut out one of the, well, I didn't cut it out. I remodded it so that it had a JCM 800 front end in it, more or less. So I turned one of them into the cathode follower, and then I modified the tone stack in it to be that of a Marshall. And it sounded more like a JCM 800, if you will. A little more hot rodded because it still had the 220 plate resistors in some of the positions, and then like the bypass caps and stuff. I didn't know much about all that at that time. It was just like, I knew I could look at the schematic and go, okay, they just strung all these along. Everything's plate driven. This stage here needs to be a cathode follower. I know what a cathode follower is. All I got to do is change these things around, and now I can make it do that. And that's what I did. The clean channel, I didn't really mess with that much. The clean channel actually sounded pretty good on those things, but it's still a pile of crap amp. Still a pile of crap. But the VHT amps, I had a friend that had the Pitbull, it sounded great. It was a cool amp. It was the one that had the graphic EQ all kind of built into it and stuff like that. And I believe his amp was all EL84s, if I wasn't mistaken. It was like a 60 watt EL84 based amp or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how it was pulled off. I think it used six EL84s or something like that. It was something along those lines. I think that's what the Pitbull series was. It was unique. It was more like a Vox than anything, but it sounded really good. Yank a tube out, take a couple, yeah, that's it. I am gonna restore my, Valve State, okay. Do a DSL power. Okay. It is weightless compressor. So the valve state is unique, and the thing that turned me off from it is that it wasn't full tube. It had a tube in it, and I'm not even 100% sure that the tube was actually doing anything. They said that it was in circuit, but it didn't sound like it to me. I played the valve state, and then I went and I played the Crate Blue Voodoo, and I was more drawn to the Crate Blue Voodoo. And this is in store, of course, mind you. So I was playing the valve state through the valve state cab, and then I was playing the Crate Blue Doo-Doo through the Crate Blue Doo-Doo cab. And I kept going back to the Crate Blue Doo-Doo. But I'd sat there and hemmed and hawed about it, because man, oh man, I knew I was going to catch flack for that thing someday. Lo and behold, here we are. That might be it. I can't remember. Let me look it up real quick and see. I know that he had a version of amp that was EL84, but let's see. It's a VHT Pitbull. I want to say it was a 50 or something, maybe. I thought it was 60, but it was regarded boutique, all tube, known for its incredibly tight, yada yada yada. So the 50CL came in EL34 or 6L6 apparently. And then they had another thing, roughly 30 to 40 watts. Okay. Maybe it was the EL34 version. But the one that he had the graphic EQ, I thought. It wasn't like the one I'm looking at here. So maybe it wasn't a Pitbull. Maybe it was a different version, but I'm going off of memory. It's been a long while, so don't quote me on anything. I thought he had an amp that had VHT amp with EL84s. Yeah, a VHT Pitbull G50CL. That one has that kind of thing. EL84s, beware of dog. VHT Pitbull 45. So he did make one with EL84s in it. I'm pretty sure that's the one my friend had. Maybe it didn't have the graphic EQ. I thought it did, but whatever. There's a bunch of different versions of it apparently. So anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to shut the frick up now. There is the Deliverance, but the Deliverance that I know of today is KT88s that are... It's kind of a weird topology that he's done. It's basically a fixed bias version of a cathode or cathodine phase inverter. The way he's done it is kind of unique. So he's using a cathodine phase inverter, but it's like a fixed, it's kind of like a high watt meets a 5E3, if you will, for the phase inverter section. So it has a fixed bias cathodine phase inverter in there, and it's definitely different. And he drives a pair of KT88s with that, at least with the modern Deliverances. Extreme metal. No, you got to get the line 6 and then get their extreme amp in there, or whatever the hell they call it. I can't remember what they call it, but the Line 6 stuff for that kind of stuff, like the Veda series, I actually like the Line 6 Veda series. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was actually pretty cool. There was the DT series was actually really freaking cool too. I think that was the one that was kind of partly done with Bogner. I know that they had the one that Bogner did the work with them. I can't remember what that series exactly was called. Insane Mode, yeah, that's the one. And that was a pretty cool model in all the grand scheme of things. But then they came out with the DT series, and I think they called it the Dream Rig or something like that. The DT25, and I think they had a DT45 or something like that. Honestly, that was a pretty cool concept, and I thought it sounded really good for what it was. And it was an all-analog multi-path switching system. So somehow or another, obviously it was SMT technology going on in there, but you change one knob and it would change 4 or 5 things in and out all at the same time. So you could have like the Plexi, the Fender, and the Mesa Boogie kind of thing, and then whatever, it had like 4 modes or something like that. And they called it the Dream Rig. It was a really cool concept. I think it sounded really good, but it didn't last very long. And I think the output section of that was designed by Bogner, which isn't saying a hell of a lot because there's not really anything Bogner did that was particularly all that different than Fender Marshall Vox, but whatever. It had his name on it. D Friday. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, when you got that many tubes in an amp, it's definitely hard to tell which one took a shit. There are ways to tell though. But yeah, when you got a butt ton of tubes in there, it gets kind of ugly. I had a friend that had the Ampeg. It was the SVT4 Pro, but it was like the original Ampeg SVT4 Pro or something like that. It had, I think, 6 6550s in it, if I'm not mistaken. It was at least a 200 watt. I'm pretty sure it was a 400 watt amp. Maybe it was 300. I don't know, whatever it was. I know that this thing was absolutely a freaking brick. You wouldn't need a boat anchor with this thing around. Like, this thing was, it almost took 2 people, and I'm, you know, not exactly small by any means, but it was a job to get it up. But I just remember looking in the back, and it just had tube. It was just fucking tubes everywhere. It's like, Jesus Christ. I can't imagine what that thing would cost today to try to retube or repair. Not sure what I would want to do with that, but I don't know that he ever had any problems with it. Like, Ampeg is honestly a killer company, and they're still around today, and they still make killer stuff. I don't think they're quite what they used to be years ago in terms of just their overall, like, quality. I'm still more of an Eden fan, David Eden. I kind of like I just like their motif. I think they're a little bit higher quality than most of the other ones. They're not as loud as Mark Bass, even though Mark Bass makes great stuff too. I think Mark Bass is kind of starting to dumb it down a little bit though. I think when they first started, they were kind of a little more serious, and then they started expanding off into guitars and other stuff like that. And now, you know, it seems like they're almost a house brand now for Guitar Center, which kind of scares me a little bit. I don't know if you heard about the whole controversy regarding Guitar Center, but they were trying to design the world's greatest guitar with help from us via Reddit and stuff like that. But then they basically have in their terms of service or something, like, more or less anything that you provide them, they can use without impunity and you know, what they can do with it however they want and give nothing back to the people in terms of monetary or whatever. They don't even have to mention your name. Basically, you provide us with all the details, and we're going to go build this guitar to sell to you to make money off of. And we're not going to give anything back to you or give any credit at all to anybody for the work that they put in to help us create this guitar for you. And it was just immediately backfired in that regard, because like the terms of service or whatever read out like it was inane. A Florida Mesa. I'm not gonna lie, I really think the Mesas sound pretty dang good. At least they did then. But they are absolute hellacious to work on. And now that they're owned by Gibson, they are again a shell of what they used to be. And the way that they terminated Randall Smith is kind of bullshit too. I think he got the short stick of the deal. Now I'm gonna will a bet that the reason that Randall Smith sold Mesa to Gibson was because he was looking to retire and he was hoping to cash out and, you know, just be able to ride it out smooth and just be, you know, I'm speaking for him. I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, but this is what my impression of the whole thing would be. I can sell this off. My name gets to keep going. My brand gets to live, and I can, you know, just kind of float on through into retirement. Well, then a year or two after the whole takeover, he gets basically let go. I don't even know if they're holding him on retainer for anything right now, which is to say that they basically said, all right, thanks, we got your name. Kick rocks, bro. Good luck. So kind of kind of nuts when you think about it like that. And that's more or less what happened with Steve Fryette and, you know, the whole VHT thing. He tried to expand his brand. He got involved with some investors. I believe it was a Japanese company or a Chinese company or something like that. But I thought it was Japanese, whatever. Tried to grow beyond just being a boutique guy doing it in this garage and all that jazz. And it bit him in the ass because at some point or another, the other company decided, nope, we got majority share and we're just going to, you're out of here, bro. See ya. Good luck trying to fight it. We wrote in a really good deal that you don't really have any power. So kick rocks, bro. We got your name. Thanks. So then he had to go off and do his own stuff as Fryette. Now he's got, you know, his namesake involved. You can bet he ain't doing that again. But even Fryette has kind of gone the way of the dodo bird. It's not that he's not a great designer, and it's not that his stuff doesn't sound good, but all of his stuff now is PCB based. You know, all of his, you know, little power soak amps that he got. I can't remember what the actual term for them is now, but you know what I mean. Those things, they're cool, but it's all OEM kind of crap, more or less. Like it's the pick and pull that I was talking about earlier. You know, you grab this power supply and you work it into this thing and then you just squish it all together. I don't think he actually designed like every aspect of it much past the power supply. You know, the power supply is probably OEM stuff that he adapted to work in his situation. And then, yeah, of course, everything else was kind of him working all this stuff out to make a really cool power soak. But it's all PCB. And apparently there is some problems with repairs on it, and when you're dealing with a small company like that, Fryette's still pretty small in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I don't know what kind of distribution he's got, but he's not part of BAD at the very least, at least not that I recall. So, you know, when things go bad, you know, you end up in a situation where it's really difficult to get those kind of repairs made. Especially when you got somebody that's really kind of pushing beyond his, you know, boundaries, if you will. He's got a pretty good business going right now between all the amps that he's got and his other little power soak things and all the other little doodads and whatnot that he does. He's not doing bad. So, Fryette, they can be. It's just interesting. There's some weird stuff going on in the back end that I don't know a whole heck of a lot. It's interesting that he's good friends with Dave Friedman. Not that we all need to butt heads and fight with each other or nothing like that. I don't want you to think I'm sitting there picking on all these companies because I hate them or that they're, you know, big company bad type thing. It's not that. It's just, you know, for me, it's all about the quality. And then when you start throwing the word boutique into it, it's just like, that's not boutique. They're not boutique. So to me, it kind of is like a slap in the face when, you know, what we all know to be true boutique, you know, doesn't align with what the industry's trying to sell you on it. And so then you got somebody like, you know, Fryette, who's really used to be truly a boutique company, who's really not boutique anymore. I mean, at one point in time, he was set up with investment firms to the degree where he was able to get his own company stolen out from underneath him. That kind of thing. Like, he got done dirty, right? I think of most of the engineers that are doing this kind of stuff right now in this particular industry, I think Mr. Fryette is probably one of the smarter ones and one of the more knowledgeable ones. Next to him, obviously, would be like Bruce, not next to him, but, you know, up there with him, of course, would be like Bruce Ignator. Bruce Ignator is more or less the guy who created BAD. I don't know if he's actually the, you know, the namesake in it, but like he's the one who kind of was a big push in that direction. Some of you probably don't know this, but there was a period of time, it was called the Amp Builders Guild or something like that, or Boutique. There was an Amp Builders Guild, okay? They were basically ghost builders. So this included people like Bob Zika. And if you don't know who Bob Zika is, check him out. He's basically kind of like a Ken Fisher personified, if you will. A little eccentric, if you will. Has a couple of strange isms. I have isms. Everybody's got an ism. He's got some isms. And when I say isms, I mean things like this cable right here. He's going to build this cable for you that you buy that comes with the amp and cab that you buy with him, right? He's going to give it to you, and he's going to put tape on this end here. He's going to tell you that this end must always go into the amp and this end must always go into the cabinet, because this cable has a direction. And somehow or another, he's determined which direction this cable must go. So you cannot run it in reverse. If you run it in reverse, you might mess up the cable and it might not sound right anymore. So you always must plug this end in to the amp, and this end here must always go into the cabinet. That kind of ism. Okay? There's a couple other isms, but that's just one of them. So, you know, Ken Fisher had some of those as well. You know, the cable has a direction kind of thing. I'm not saying he cray, but he might be cray. Maybe I just don't got those kind of ears. I can't hear it. I don't know. But he is Bob Jika, and I'm just this freaking little peon over here. So, yeah, right. So you got Bob Jika. There was Bruce Ignator. There was a bunch of different people around the country that were part of this Amp Builders Guild, and they basically did like ghost builds for each other. So there would be X brand of amp or something like that, and they would all just bang these things out together. And that was how a lot of these different little boutique amps were able to get produced at enough scale to be viable to get out the door for people. As opposed to me, where it takes 6 months to produce something usable, right? Well, imagine if I can only make 2 amps a year. I'm never going to make $1 selling amps out of my garage, like at this rate, right? If I could get an amp out a week, I might be able to get something. Like, I might be able to make a living at it. But I better not skip a week. Excuse me, by the way, that was rude. So, creating a poster, offering $20 for a video of Friedman playing a guitar. I know that he can play. I've actually seen him play. Go buy a continuity tester. Does not one exist? I swear I've seen him play guitar. I know that Friedman knows enough about amps to get in there and maybe do something. Where it gets a little odd is that, you know, he's got his original 69 Plexi or whatever it was, and he's giving it to Fryette to give a tune-up on it. It was like, okay, you are an amp company that builds guitar amps that are basically of exactly what you have, modified or whatnot, but here you are giving your amp to someone else to do a tune-up on it. It's a little odd. Now, I'm not going to say that he doesn't know anything about what he's got going on in there, but it obviously seems to me that, what would you call it? He only knows enough to know what he wants, not exactly how to do it. And again, that's where the engineers come in. So that's what my understanding and impression of it is. 5-watt. Oh, wow. Are you really sure you haven't seen him play guitar? The 5-watt world thing is another unique channel. Right place, right time, right format, and knows the right people. I mean, he was working pretty closely with, oh gosh, his name just slipped my mind. The white-haired guy that used to be a music producer. Why I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I apologize. But he was close friends with him, and of course that was that little push that got 5-watt world working where it was. I mean, when your first production video is pretty much of the quality of some of these larger channels, obviously there's some stuff going on the back end that's helping you get there, because it's really difficult even for me to produce this level of quality, and we're not talking about much here. It's a green screen, but like to have the level of quality that he had from the drop means that there was definitely some back end work being done to make that possible. And then for the channel to grow like it did too. I mean, I think he's up in the millions now. Definitely up into the 6 figures. Let's see here, 5-watt world, right? let's just see here. Where is he at right now? 5-watt world. 321,000 subscribers. He's got 375 videos. So he's almost got 1,000 subscribers for every video that he's made. So when you got the right recipe going on and you got all the stuff needed that you need, again, it comes down to connections. I said it before in some of my other videos, like what makes a great, you know, guitar designer, or why all guitar designers are kind of weird. It's true. But you have to have a good story. That was the one of the biggest things. Like, you have to have some interesting story that is unique to you, and a quirk, an ism, a thing that is unique about you that makes you a unique story, right? That's why Alexander Dumble, Ken Fisher, and, you know, Bob Zika are where they're at now. Bob Zika sells $10,000 amps that are single channel 2-knob amps. You think I'm evil? That dude's selling you an amp that you have to buy a box with to actually get the distortion. And the box that you buy is just a germanium distortion, like fuzz pedal. It's basically a really, really good germanium fuzz box. That's what gets you the distortion that he's got. And then the amp is just an amp. It's got a knob and a volume, or a tone and a volume control. That's it. And I think most of them are, what, 100 watts now? He's got a newer version. I think it's 100 watts, but most of them are like 40 watts or something like that. So I don't know. I'm not knocking. I'm just saying, like, that's what he's able to sell for $10,000. But you got to have that. And then you, at some point, you have to be a good businessman. So I don't know much of 5-watt world, like his history prior to what's got him into where he's at currently. But then you got to know the right person. Like, you have to have an in. Like, with those three things, if you have a unique story, you know the right person, and you have, you know, just a good business acumen, 5-watt world, you win. So it's not a bad thing. I'm not knocking. I'm just saying it's crazy to think that, I mean, it was from the drop. Like, it was just go. I don't know, because all Fryette did was just an update. Like, all he did was kind of bias the amp and give it like a tune-up, like just fix like the things that were wrong with it. I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot of secrets going on in the industry right now. Like, PRS is a great example of this. They keep saying that all of their designs are these lost. How many times? Okay, it's not that. Let's back it up just a little bit. How is it possible that these companies are the only ones that keep coming up with these lost and, you know, obscure schematics from somewhere, right? Like, why is it that PRS is the one that got the Jimi Hendrix, the actual Jimi Hendrix schematic? Why them? And why now in 2015 or 2020 or whatever, when they came out with that design? How on earth did it take 60, 70 years, or 60 years for that to finally come to fruition? It was sitting somewhere. Somebody knew it. It was just, now is the time that we can market this and profit off of it. That's the only thing I can think of. Because all those companies always seem to come up with this magic, hidden, you know, obscure schematic from something the days of yore that no one else can verify. It's not verifiable by you or I, but you know what I mean? Did you know? I don't know if you know this, by the way, but this is a super secret, uber duper special topology in here. I got it from Dave Reeves himself. It was hidden in his vault. His family gave it to me. That's actually what I'm using here. I tell you that it's a train wreck schematic. Well, so Ken Fisher was actually cohorting with the family. You know that Ken Fisher was around while Dave Reeves was still alive, right? So they colluded at one point in time, and this is that topology in here. Do you believe me? Would that sell it to you if I said that that's what it was? That's what it is. It's a high watt with a train wreck built into it with a couple of little things. They all have the little isms going on there. The UFO files. Yeah, exactly. Right. I just always thought it was weird. It's just like PRS keeps coming, like at least 2 times I've heard him talk about like this special schematic that they, you know, found lost to the archives somewhere, and it was provided to them specifically. It's like, come on, bro. Really? Really? You're not really even known for making guitar amplifiers. You're known for making guitars. You've been making guitars for 30 years, and then you finally start making amplifiers, and the guy that had been sitting on this thing for 30, 40, 50 years came to you because you're the one who's going to make that amp the best it can possibly be. Come on. Why not Marshall? Because the Marshall's the one it actually came out of. That kind of crap. This is like, what is that? That side-eye cat or that side-eye kid? They're just like, I don't know, man. Yeah, right. You can't prove me wrong. I don't know. It is just a schematic. Luckily, you can't really copyright these things too much. As long as it's different, I think you can kind of get away with it. So the tuner knobs make it sound like a 60s Strat. Yeah, right. Those kind of isms are out there, though. It's trippy. It is freaking trippy. I mean, okay, how serious do you think fuck, what's his damn name from Smashing Pumpkins? I keep wanting to say Cobain, but it's not. It's I can't remember his last name. Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan. You know how he was like going on about how his guitars have to be the specific color because that's the color that sounds right? Like, do you think he was actually being serious? Or is that just it? Like, this guitar is this color of white specifically because that is the one that made it sound right. It's those little kind of things that always make me wonder. And now he's going on about how the industry was purposely trying to kill rock and roll and stuff. There's some weird crap going on right now. Like, what? Says the white paint sounds better. Yeah, right? Like, I don't know, man. I think red paint sounds better myself. Or black. Or raw wood. I like raw wood. I prefer raw wood myself. But, like, that's some crazy crap, man. You can play faster on red guitars. That's what it is. It's hilarity. That's what it definitely is. So I don't know. And then, you know, like Jack White is, you know, the White Stripes fame. Like, he's kind of an eccentric character too. Because he's got some kind of isms to him. I mean, all these guys are famous for a reason. I mean, I talked about it a little bit the other day, you know, about like the neuroticism that is required to be. I don't know if I talked about it on my channel, but there was something else that was kind of going over with, I think it was on Riff's channel. I might have talked about it. I may not have posted it. I can't remember. I know I was writing something out, but then I got sidetracked, but probably. I think it's the full package, to be honest. I don't think it's any one thing that makes it. Like, I can tell you that on the world's most authentic guitar, this guy right here, this is the world's most authentic guitar, by the way. Just saying. World's most authentic guitar. That is a Gibson Les Paul Custom. Don't worry, it's made in America, okay? It says it's made in the USA, okay? So we know it's real. But this one is so custom, it comes with an ESP neck with a Fender Telecaster body set neck, by the way. And it's, you know, got the stop, bridge stop, the whole nine, right? This is the world's most authentic guitar. Now, the bridge and the saddle on this one did help a lot. It didn't rattle. That was a big thing. And I did put that nut on there like I was talking about. So this is the Graphtec nut. That made a huge difference, as well as these tuners. These I put all the cheap shit on here. So I got the Geiger parts. I spent the money on the... I swear to God, this nut probably cost more than the tuners did. But these tuners are actually really nice. These things are smooth. They are 21-to-1 or 1-to-21 or something like that. So really nice, smooth ratio. Works really well. And then this bridge is honestly really freaking good. I was impressed with how well the bridge actually is. They don't have like the deep V cuts in there like some of the cheap ones do. So they did this right, and it's got the set screws to keep these things locked in place. I like that. And then I put the cheap Fleor pickups on it. Now the only thing I didn't replace, which I wish I did, was the switch. Because guess what's failing already? Freaking switch. The other day when I was starting to record like that intro song that you heard on the last video I did, I think I did it on this one too, but in either case, I went to switch to the neck position and it worked. And when I went to switch back down to the bridge position, it was like, what the hell? Where did everything? I don't have the volume now. What's going on? The switch is bad. So I'm like, son of a bitch. So I'm buying a new switch for that thing. Darn it. And then I did buy another Geiger bridge, exact same one as that, except for in silver or nickel or whatever. And I got that for that SG that I was talking about. I have an Epiphone SG that it just, I don't know what it is. It's cursed. The truss rod on it is, unfortunately, I think it's only a one direction. So it doesn't, I think I've got it tightened down as much as I can to get the relief out. And if I try to tighten it anymore, I think I'm just starting to crush the ends. So it definitely needs to be taken apart and have the ends reset. But we're not doing that on a $400 guitar. But the relief isn't the problem. We can get that set. That's not the big deal. But between the nut, the tuners, and the bridge that was on there, like the cheap bridge that it came with, like it had the deepest V's known to man. Like the strings were sitting inside of this alleyway, like literally hot dog in a hallway kind of situation. And it just sounded like ass. Like it never sounded right. I put that bridge on it and it definitely brought that guitar to life. So the only thing left is to change the nut into a real Graphtec and change the tuners out to something a little more akin to like what's on this guitar here. It comes with a set, it came with a set of Grovers on there, so they're Grover style, so whatever. But it is at least playable now. And then I put a pickup that I had gotten from Grant Us Glorious Tone in there. Speaking of which, where the hell has he been? I haven't seen him in a while. But he gave me a Badlander or Bollinger pickup or something, some off-brand. But it actually sounds pretty nice. It's not a super high output pickup, which I like. I don't like high output pickups for that. It's not my thing. But then I took one of the Jazz that I have a Jazz that I took out of that other guitar, this guitar. I had the Seymour Duncan Jazz neck in this guitar. I took that out of there and put it in that SG, and it's not my favorite pickup for that particular guitar. It sounds fine, it works, but I'm still on the hunt for a neck pickup for that, but it sounds better than what was in there. And the ones that were in there were the 500Ts. I've never liked these. They're definitely not their most famous pickups, but these are the original Gibson USA. Focus, you fack. Yeah, it's not going to do it. Will it? Maybe. Yeah. So these are real Gibson pickups, but they're the 500Ts. And I'm not a fan of them. They are Alnico, I'll give them that. But unfortunately, those things sound like ass, at least in that SG. So I'm still on the hunt for a real set of pickups. I want to find ones with the silver covers like were originally in there. I did pick up a set of actual Epiphone SG pickups, put them in there at one point. Definitely did not work. Didn't do the part for me. So right now, it's the best that guitar's ever been since I owned it. Sans a couple more upgrades. So I don't think just the bridge alone. It's definitely the whole package that makes a guitar go from subjectively terrible to objectively great. Guitar heads pickup. Yeah. Okay, guitar heads pickup. I'll have to check that out. These Fleor ones, I'm pretty sure they're Fleor, I think it was the brand, are actually pretty nice. I'm not going to say great. I'm going to say really nice. Considering their price point, which what, maybe 30 bucks for the set? Maybe it was 40 bucks for the set, something like that. It wasn't exorbitant. Actually pretty decent. They're Alnico pickups. They sound like Alnico. They look nice. I'll take it. Yeah, right? Kids guitar. Yeah? Hell yeah. That's all you got to do is get them playing. You got to get the kids playing. Get them doing it early too. My friend's got a couple kids that are coming to that age where they're starting to get interested in everything he does. So they're starting to dink around with his guitars, and you know, he's got nice stuff. And I haven't dropped it off with him yet. I'm probably going to take it into him tomorrow maybe, but we talked before about this Schecter here. And this is one of the guitars that I got. Well, this is the guitar that I got for him. Amazing guitar. If you're looking for an affordable, heavy guitar, this one's dropped C, but hard to beat. Comes with a Graphtec nut. Comes with a volute. To me, that's a big deal. The neck is not super thin, so it's not a hyper shreddy neck, but it's not super fat either. It has a real good fit. It's kind of like a deep C, I guess I would call it. So it feels fast, but it's not uber shreddy. I don't like those super shreddy necks. I don't know, they just feel too small. I don't mind a fat neck. The most authentic guitar in the world has a freaking baseball bat of a neck. I don't mind it. I like it. But I mean, it's got the, you know, the all access heel thing going on. It's got that nice, you know, handshake, as Philip McKnight says. The fret job, it could be better, but I mean, it's not going to pass the Philip McKnight, you know, stocking test, but it's good enough that I'm not going to cut myself and I'm not going to hang a string up underneath it, right? So it gets a pass on that regard. The pickups in here definitely are only going to suit heavier stuff. They are high output. They are dark. They're not going to do pretty cleans. They are meant to do kind of grimy, grungy stuff. Killer guitar. The volume control on here feels nice. It's good quality stuff. The switch is fine. It's beautiful. It's a mahogany body. It's a veneer top. That is a veneer. Believe you me, it is not a 1/4 inch thing. But they did try to make it look like it was a full 1/4 inch top. If you look around the edge there, I don't know if you can see it in there you go. You can see it. See that line they put there? They painted in fake binding to make it look like this thing has a full cap on it. It's just a veneer. It's straight up a paper thin veneer. And the way you can always tell every time is, almost always, you're never going to see, you know, these roll-offs with the grain that stays intact. When you get the contours like that, almost all the time you're going to see the grain change in those spots. And another way you always know, 100% of the time, to know that you got a veneer on the top is they paint the edges black all the way around. When it's black all the way around, that's a veneer. Why? Because it's the only way they can hide the edge. But this is a killer guitar. I want to get one for myself, just because I need to have, I said the word need. I need to have a heavy guitar like that to play around with. So if you look on here, again, you can see it's painted all the way to the edge, but you can see where it ends. This is just a veneer on here as well. So this is a Mexican made, I don't know what version of Strat this is. This is one of those ones that frustrates me because I can't find exactly what version it is, but 3-piece body, maybe more. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is like a 6-piece body on here. I can see a multitude of different layers in here, but 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4, possibly more body chunks in here. The neck on there is really nice. It's got a nice flame on the neck. It's not like, you know, quadruple A quality or whatever they call it, but it's a nice guitar for a Mexican made one. Comes with it is a real Floyd Rose, but it's dive only. The locking tuner on there is fine. It's a real Fender. It's made in Mexico, like I said. I said that like 5 times already, but but yeah, that's how you can tell. Every time, 100% of the time, they paint the edge all the way off. So that way you can't tell, or at least they try to obscure the fact that it is a veneer. So I want to get a USA made guitar soon. This is saddles bearing edge. Oh yeah. No, I hear you, Troopin'. Yeah. painted vining. Me neither. I want raw wood. I love raw wood, and I don't have, I do, but I need to, I'm lazy. I spent all my time changing all these other things. Hold on, let me make myself a little less embarrassed. I need to change the strings on this guitar. So this is a guitar that I built, and many years ago, actually, at this point, I painted it. I shouldn't say I built it. I painted it, and then I put the neck on there and all the other fun stuff. But this guitar is super fun. So this is one I built and painted. But that is a real 1/4-inch top on this thing. It is, I believe, an alder body. I think it's alder. Something like that. It's a 2-piece. Yeah, it's only a 2-piece. Right there, you can actually see the seam. See the seam right there? But the neck is like a Warmoth neck. It's a fat baseball bat neck. I don't mind that. I picked all the parts to put in here. This thing is a beast. Sorry, the artifacting from the green screen is doing what it does. This thing is a blast. It's got the Seymour Duncan, what's his knuckles name? I just said it the other night too. There's a name. Jerry Donahue. It's got the Jerry Donahues in there. Absolute best Telecaster pickup I've ever played in my entire life. If you are ever in doubt of which Telecaster pickup to get, go to Seymour Duncan. I believe it's on their custom shop page now. I think that's the only way you can get them anymore is off that custom shop page. But the Jerry Donahue hot Telecaster pickup, or whatever the hell it is. Peachy freaking king. USA Jackson. I definitely want to get a USA made guitar. I was kind of looking at getting a USA Strat. I wanted to get like their top of the line USA Strat. And then they pulled this whole lawsuit crap, and I'm just like, gosh dang it. They couldn't just leave well enough alone. It's like, it's hard enough to respect these companies as it is, and then they go and they pull this kind of crap, and it's just like, now I got to find another brand to go look into, because I don't know that I can support that. I understand, believe you me, I understand, like, not copying stuff and all that jazz, but there's kind of like this, nobody's going to step on their feet. Like, I'm sorry, but PRS is never going to be known for making the Silver Sky and making a Strat copy that's better than the original Strat. Nobody goes and says PRS is making a better Strat than Fender does. They like PRS for whatever reason, and that's where they go. It's a modified Super Strat. That's it. That's really all it is. And everybody knows it's exactly what it is. It's a Super Strat. It's got details and features that a Strat should have that they don't generally have. So, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if Jackson is Fender or not. I know that most Jacksons are now made overseas. So, the only good ones to buy are from the Americas. But, the PreSonus stuff, oh yeah. Fender on it. See, I didn't know that Fender owned PreSonus. I know that they keep getting bought out. So Fender is owned by a Chinese company now, as I understand it. So it's not even in the family or whatever CBS was, or it's a conglomerate, whatever they call that. It's investment firms. So there's a group of shareholders that their only task is to try to find a way to make a salary CEO of $300 million a year, because that's what he needs is another $300 million, while the peon on the showroom floor or whatever is making dick all, driving the same 89 Corolla that they've had for the last 20 years. Yeah, because, you know. Stop it, Luke. Oh, on all their interfaces. Okay. I can't remember who PreSonus was made or originally owned by. I thought, I don't know, it's such a mess now. Like, JBL is owned by Harman Kardon. Harman Kardon is some conglomerate, again, that owns a butt ton of stuff. And right around the time Harman Kardon got a hold of JBL as a company, they soon thereafter went to making all things no longer in-house. So a little bit of history in the sound world. JBL is, basically kind of like an offshot of like the Clare brothers in a sense. Like they used to kind of be all together in a way, but JBL went off and did their whole little thing on their own. They just happened to land on professional audio as being like their mainstay. At one point they did more home theater and like theater sound than anything. More so, and hi-fi and whatnot, more so than, actual pro audio as we know it for like bands and corporate events and stuff like that. Mid-90s, they kind of really blossomed in the live sound world, and that's where they kind of, dug in and kept rolling with that whole thing. They had their SRX, or SR line, I should say, and that's what kind of really put their name on the map, because some of those speakers are still kicking ass today. They're heavier than two bodies in a duffel bag, but they work well, right? They sound like gas, but whatever. Fast forward into the 2010 era, and they start getting bought up by Harman Kardon, and immediately thereafter, all their in-house R&D that was being done was outsourced. They did everything out of China. So the last series that they had that was done in-house was the latest SRX series that they released, which was just prior to the SRX 800 series. So the 800 series is basically the China, rendition of their SRX line. Now, the only reason I pick on the SRX line is because that is like the entry-level pro-grade stuff that most people like you and I are going to get to play with. Their VT series or whatever it is, or I can't remember, it's a V something series. That's up on another level. Those are like $10,000 speakers a piece and stuff like that. Like those are obviously like more install related, high-end theater and stuff like that. Most of those aren't very popular. They're not very common. And then you got their line array stuff, which is again just a whole different thing. They had their VRX line, which is a pile of shit. They were the first to come out with the constant curvature array, which is just a bullshit way of making a fixed curvature line array system that they tried to sell as a line array. It was constant curvature array, not a line array. But it worked. It got people to buy these things. They're ugly. They're hideous. They sound like ass, and people liked them. I don't know why, but they made a lot of noise. I'll give them that. But now they got their V something 900 series. It's basically their new line array box that they got. Self-contained power, all that fun stuff, modular, yada, yada, yada. That is essentially like the bottom of they went from being way up here on the top of the list to now pretty much being on the bottom of the list with some of their stuff, because it's just entry level now for getting into the line array market. That's what happens when you start getting conglomerates in on these things. They try to find the way to make the most money, not to make the best product. So, yeah, more branding than quality. Yeah. Cali Audio. Yeah, and there's a lot of them that kept kind of doing that thing. Oh, Samsung, owns JBL, etc.? Okay. I didn't know that it was Samsung that was the parent company now. I know, well, Samsung might own Harman Kardon. I don't know. I know that they're in the same family together. Maybe they're not anymore. Maybe it's Harman Kardon has, not Soundcraft. Soundcraft is dead now too, because they conglomerated and then got dropped like a bad habit. What is that other company? Allen and Heath. Maybe it's Allen and Heath that I'm thinking of that's part of that. It might be Allen and Heath and JBL that were at one point in time in the Harman Kardon family. But Harman Kardon was just the audio aspect of some larger parent company. So maybe that's Samsung. I can't remember the exact, hierarchy, but something like that. But anytime you start getting somebody investing money and you got shareholders involved, and it's all about making the shareholders money and making sure that that CEO has that multi-million-dollar salary, it gets out of hand, and the person that suffers the most are the guys buying the stuff at the consumer level. Every time it seems that that's the case. It's not very often that, you know, these companies get bought out by these, you know, conglomerates and they turn into the world's greatest thing since sliced bread. Here's the AI overhaul. There's the AI. Okay, which acquired the brand when it purchased JBL's parent company, Harman International. That's Harman Kardon, for $8 billion in 2017. Okay, so I'm a little bit behind the ball. So Samsung owns Harman Kardon, which, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, close. I was close. So I was right, and then I was wrong, and now we're on the same page again. I did not know that. That's good to know. So 2017, that was right about the time I stopped giving a shit about JBL, to be honest. RCF, so I'm more or less an RCF house at the moment. So I have, my entire monitor rig is RCF, which RCF is an Italian speaker company that is more known for making OEM stuff. They were supplying, you know, the drivers, if you will, for companies like JBL, for companies like EAW, and several of the other ones out there. They're like B&C in a sense. So B&C drivers made, you know, again, drivers for all these other different companies that you've heard of, EAW, JBL, etc., etc. At some point, RCF has been around for probably 100 years now, I think, damn near 100 years, or very close to it. And they're just not only an OEM, but I want to say right around the mid-2000s, or early part of the 2000s, they really started pushing their own stuff out as an aside. So instead of just being an OEM provider, they started making their own speaker products. And now they're kind of mid-tier, I'm going to say mid-tier of the line array world. So the only reason I use line array in that term is because that's kind of what sets apart the men from the boys, right? You've got Martin Audio, you've got L Acoustics, you've got D&B, Audio Technic, and then you've got just a couple others in there, right? And those are like the upper echelon, like L Acoustics and probably D&B, Audio Technic are like the top of the heat, right? There isn't any better, and they're like neck and neck. They're using lab grouping amplifiers and stuff like that, like crap that, you know, a single amplifier costs as much as a car almost these days. Many of these amps are like $7,000 to $10,000. It's nuts. And one amp will power maybe half a dozen boxes or more, maybe 8 boxes or something like that. But when you're talking about a line array, you're talking about something that's probably got 8 boxes at minimum per side, maybe up to 16 boxes per side. L Acoustics, they're like K1 system, like those boxes without an amplifier. We're talking just the speaker itself. One element is what they call it. The one speaker in that makes part of that array, one element, easily 10 grand for one of those. One element, and you need 32 of them to have a full array at the format level that you're going to use these things at or need them for. So then you got to have all the amplification for them. And when you're talking about $7,000 to $10,000 per amp, yeah, it gets real expensive real quick. Then the copper that goes between them, generally it's, you know, we're talking multiple dollars per foot for a lot of that stuff. It's out of control. So you got those 3 names that I talked about that kind of head up the top of the list. And then there's a bunch of ones that kind of take up the middle, and RCF is one of those in the middle. And then some of the ones that kind of take up the bottom are some of the RCF offerings and, of course, some of the JBL offerings. All right, there's a bunch of other companies trying to get in there as well, like Seismic Audio. Seismic Audio tries to actually sell a freaking system as a line array. Bullshit. It's not a line array, okay? It's some funny stuff. I don't know. Whatever. I'm just bibble babbling now, but all right, you guys, I'm gonna call it a night. We've been talking now for 2 hours and 53 minutes, going on 3 hours. So my mom was calling there a minute ago. My nephews are in town, so I need to figure out what we're gonna do to visit with them. Hopefully they're not like leaving in the next day or something like that. But I want to thank you guys so much for just hanging out with me. Oh wait, hold on. Let's go back just a little bit real quick. They put in a Fender logo. Yep. Have you noticed YouTube now have a voice boost setting in the COG wheel? Turn it off, people. I don't even know what the COG wheel is. I only use OBS, and on the studio side, I don't set anything different. I'm looking, well, I can't even pull up the settings right now, so I'll have to look into that. I did not know that there was anything different. But anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out with me. It was great to chitty chat, and I'm glad we kind of got to break away from this thing and just kind of yip yap. I am going to move this video out of the current playlist that it's in. I just copied all the settings from the last one. So this one's going to end up somewhere else. If you care, I don't know. But in the meantime, do be prepared. Probably this weekend we are going to do a more breakdown on this thing and try to show more sound samples of it and kind of see the range that it can go from clean to mean, what it sounds like with the output section breaking up, etc. So all those little things, we're going to try to give you all the little kibbles and bits to make sure we oversell this thing. So with that, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Goodbye.